fired up.
4th down and goal from the 9. 17 seconds to go. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that? It ends on a turnover.
Joe Burrow takes the snap. He takes a knee. And after 31 years, the drought is over. It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56.
Welcome back. As always, I'm Aaron Smith, joined by Jeff Howell and the named best producer in the city.
What's going on, guys?
The only one saying it.
Prompt.
And it is part of the punctuation. Thanks for joining us. We do have special guests in the house. It's been a long time. Always a good time. Clay Snowden of Just Baseball. Right? We can still say that?
You can, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that hadn't gone by the wayside. I know the lockout was tough on some people. So
no, we have I have an article coming out tomorrow that I think fans will yell at me about the Cincinnati Reds, but I'll get into that a little bit later on.
But you can check him out at www.justbaseball.com. And on Twitter is probably where you're the most active. And that's at Clay_Snowden?
Reds, at Clay_Reds.
There it
a little
is.
bit shorter than Snowden.
There it is. All right. So Ed changed the background on you, Jeff.
He did. I see that.
We know you're Clay's biggest
Ed's
fan.
muted on it. Ed muted himself and then tried to respond.
Hey, baseball.
Thanks. We see that.
I worked hard this afternoon for this show.
Clay said it looked like you grabbed it out of clip art.
I did it in Canva.
It looks like
Ed
something.
downloaded the Canva app. It was like $199 for the pro version. He said,
No,
no,
I'm still
never
using
mind.
the cheap version. No.
It looks like something that you bought a print of at Joanne Fabrics.
What the hell did you guys do for the show today?
You know, I host it, so.
I mean, there's a pretty big Google Doc.
That's a good point. I also have Google Slides.
So we do want to start the discussion right away. The CBA, we already alluded to it. The lockout is over. The CBA has been ratified, and the Reds are in shambles. And that's how we're going to proceed through this conversation. So first and foremost, I do want to talk with you, Clay, about the CBA, because we're all out here just your average casuals, your baseball casuals. But you do deep dives in things like the CBA when called upon. So what were your biggest takeaways from the new CBA?
Yeah, so as the CBA was going on, the lockout was going on, it made me think about like other sports and when this comes up in other sports. And I did not remember it being this reported on, I guess, for lack of a better term, in other sports. I just feel like one of the big issues, like if none of the reporting was going on and we just got baseball when we did, I don't think anyone would be nearly as mad. There's just so much information about what was going on and what the players wanted, what the players wouldn't budge on, the owners and whatnot. And honestly, it was kind of sloppy. At the end of the day, though, I kind of like the main things from it, which are the changes. No more ghost runner on second base and extra
Thank
innings.
God.
And I did not mind the 7-inning double headers. I did not mind that really, but they eliminated that. Universal DH. I've been very public about my love for the DH. So,
Well, I mean, what the hell sense did it make to have two separate sets of rules?
yeah.
Like, no other sport has that.
It's always been like that, Aaron. Who doesn't love seeing guys go up there and just whiff at the ball repeatedly and then try and lay it out a bunt?
I don't.
Thanks.
The other big change that comes to the top of the head was larger bases. Literally, you will not be able to notice if some random person has not followed at all and turned on a baseball game. They're not going to be like, "Holy shit, those bases are huge."
Now that's not until next year, though, right?
Ed, can you find a picture of the bases?
Yeah, the bases, yes, Jeff, but yeah, I really don't know how much of a difference that will make. Obviously, it will make a difference, but
I mean, the whole point of it was just to limit injuries. However, you have a ton more real estate when trying to swipe second or third.
yeah.
Theoretically,
I
I don't know if the distance between the bases is measured from the center of the base to the center of the base, or if it's edge to edge. Because if it's edge to edge, I mean, you're still, you know what I mean, like running the same distance between the bases. As far as like stealing it over, like gaining maybe an inch total.
I don't mean that. I just mean you have, instead of being this much room, you have this much room, so you have more room for your hand to go. And
I see what you're saying.
More real estate for the guy with the ball in the glove to have to cover that hand. I mean, again, it's not a giant difference, but I mean, that's considerable.
And I still don't know that I understand the reasoning behind it, because I thought they had said that it was like safety related, but I assumed that they would have, like first base would be maybe extended out into foul territory. Yeah. But then I saw this, and it looks substantial here. But I think like what Clay is saying is like if you're watching a game, like you're not going to be like they're running down and stepping on mattresses at each base. Like
Yeah.
Be a lot cooler if they were.
I don't think so.
No, really though. If they were mattresses, do you think we could get more money? Because then we could
All right.
bags are sponsored by Mattress Firm.
Get out of here, Ed.
Ed's eating right now. I guarantee.
I know he totally is eating right now. That's why his camera's off.
What are you talking about? I'm not eating. Right
And
here.
the other things that come in 2023 are the shift restrictions and pitch clocks.
I understand. I'm not somebody who wants to change all of the rules or anything. I like the banning of the shift, not because I am, gonna complain about hitting and no offense. I don't really care about all that. I just like it because I think it'll be a little bit more enjoyable for entertainment. Just watching a game. It's just going to be a little bit more entertaining overall, which is fine with me. Like I said, I don't really care. Seeing Manny Machado making a catch from quote unquote third base and he's in right field. It's just like bizarre. It's just bizarre. So the pitch clock, something that they've done in the minor leagues, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. And the pitchers and catchers will learn to adjust. Maybe the first month or so, you may see a problem, but overall, I don't think it's going to have this like drastic thing where it's like, it's not going to be like the play clock in the NFL where like, you're rushed and like, oh my God, here we go. We got to snap the ball, right? It's not going to be like that. You're not going to see some pitcher like hurry up to throw a ball. Like I don't think it'll be enforced in that way.
So you also have the expanded playoffs, now 12 teams, no more one game wild card playoff. They got rid of game 163. So you're not going to have where teams are tied and have to play off, in this exhibition, if you will. I mean, I guess it's more than an exhibition, but almost another playoff game just to break a tie. They're going to have tiebreakers already predetermined. The playoffs, it sounds like are going to be changed dramatically. I don't know. I guess part of me thinks that 12 might be a bit much. But what are your thoughts about the playoff changes?
Yeah, so I'm an NBA guy as well, and the NBA playoffs are pretty big, right? And they have a play-in tournament now, or play-in seeding, or whatever you call it.
Time out. Chad's or Clay's an NBA guy?
I'm an NBA guy. I'm not a college basketball guy, but I am an NBA guy. Go Celtics.
We're on season 5 of the show. We've had you on for at least 4 of those seasons. And this is the first time we found this out.
No, Ed. Some
That's
of us
not
already
true.
knew that. His friends knew that.
Yeah.
You didn't know that.
Clay talks about the NBA a lot.
All the time.
NBA is
Ned.
great.
It's gone and muted again.
So the NBA playoffs, you see those 8 seeds, 9 seeds adding and trying to get in, and everyone says, "Oh, it's going to water it down." Yes, it will, but what it also does is generate interest amongst fan bases. It's the same thing in the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, there's 4 teams or whatever. Like, that's absurd. But what does every 11 seed fans do? They watch every last game up to the end, seeing if they're going to make the tournament. It just generates interest. And yeah, maybe they get, swept in the first round or whatever, but the Cinderella stories happen from time to time. I don't have like a strong, like, personal feeling about it. I think it could be good for, local fan bases.
Okay.
I'm on board
And
with
the
it.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm on board with it. I mean, I think that's a good number there, and then you don't have these one game, like the one game wild card. You win, you're in; you lose, you're out, kind of things. Like, I like the 3-game series. I know that they tried to do a thing where, like, the higher seed would have a ghost win, so they would only have to win once, which I think is silly, and it didn't get in, so that's good. Like, to Clay's point, where you're gonna have teams that maybe at the trade deadline would be just blowing their team up, trying getting rid of guys because they're not gonna make it. Whereas now they're probably gonna hold on to those guys. They're gonna play it through to the end of the season because they're gonna have a better they're gonna have a chance to get in and compete in the playoffs. And if they get hot at the right time, because we all know baseball is a sport where if you get hot at the right time, you could run through the playoffs and win a World Series, and that's exciting, especially for those teams that maybe it doesn't happen as often.
What does it do for ownership? Okay, if the Reds made the playoffs last year, and we all know in the playoffs, the rotation shrinks, managing changes. The Reds had a really good top 3 in their rotation last year. If you win a playoff series or two, does ownership sell? Do they, I just think it could put more pressure on ownership, front offices to, oh man, we did make it in. We won a playoff series. Expectations are a little different. We can't use we missed the playoffs and, it's time to try to reload or rebuild or whatnot.
Ed, how do you feel about the playoffs?
Doesn't matter. We're never going to be in them.
Well played.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, let's be honest.
Can't even argue that.
And thank you.
All right, just making sure you're still with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
I mean, you should see me in the background, just blowing things up over here. We're all over Facebook right now.
That's great. Good job.
Thank you.
Apparently, it is first base only. I'm being told. Maybe I missed that memo. As far as the larger bags go.
So the idea of that is so that you don't have
collisions
and, first baseman's foot up against it. Someone steps on the bag, steps on their ankle. I mean, you see that fairly often.
Right.
So yeah, sure. That's fine. It's great.
From what I read, it's all the bases because they said that it's going to have a modest impact on the success rate of stolen base attempts.
Well, God forbid Bob has to pay for any injuries to any of these players.
All right. Get out of here. So, I mean, let's go back to the beginning of the lockout, though, before they came to the CBA. So essentially, you had the owners who were locking out the players and just like, we don't want you guys back here. There's things with the CBA that we don't like. And the narrative was written all over the place. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but I'm curious to hear what your take is, that it was the billionaires versus the millionaires. So what was your thought process when the lockout even happened? Do you think this was something that was necessary for the game? Do you think that the players got a fair shake on this, or do you think that the owners just kind of dug their own grave here? I mean, where do you stand on this?
So I'm not a lawyer, which may be surprising to some people, right? But I'm
you have the
very
haircut.
much not a lawyer. So
I'm one.
Yeah. labor negotiation is not something I would consider myself an expert in. But like I said before, I think this happens like with all kinds of things. You know, if you talk to like a union, this type of stuff happens with unions too. It's not that uncommon. I think the issue with it was, like I said, just how public all of it was. I think the end result and what they got, I thought it was, you know, pretty fair overall. I haven't read into every single detail of the CBA. I read the last one. It was, you know, 300 and something pages, so I've not gotten around to that yet. But
you did actually read the last one?
Yeah,
God, you're such a super fan. I love it.
It was during the lockout, and Twins Daily, which is a fantastic follower on Twitter. If you have
during the
any
lockout or
interest-
lockdown?
What's that?
You read it during the lockout?
During the lockout.
Okay, I thought maybe you read it like during lockdown when
I got it
the
on
pandemic started.
twinsdaily.com.
Okay.
I just got fascinated with it because it was like describing like players who are cut, like their transportation home, how many meals they get on the plane or whatever. Like there's so much detail to it that I was just like, this would be a nightmare to draft up. But
well, I assume you have rules like that because you had an issue with it at some point.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's always issues. I mean, a little short story here. I'm wearing my Louisville Bats pullover. Dwight Smith was with the Bats this year, got cut, I think, while the team was in Toledo, and they like did not prepare him transportation home. He was just like, all right, man, like, I guess, you know, there's a bus or something, or you can just kind of figure it out. Like, that's the type of shit that like is absurd. And I know we're talking about the minor leagues there, but you know, I'm sure that happened at some point in time.
It's still shitty.
Yeah. Oh my
like,
god. Yes, it's really.
Like, sorry, you're no longer part of the team or organization.
Find your own ride home.
Yeah.
Thanks
luck.
for your service. See you later.
You're cut off.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, I think that the agreement that they came to was reasonable. I don't think there's anything absurd. I was, you know, I think we're going to talk about the draft lottery, but I was wanting an international draft.
Which could still happen.
Which can still happen, right?
Up to like July, I think they have a
So
option to put that in.
I just think an international draft would be good, especially for teams that are, you know, struggling with talent.
Because then that takes away making qualifying offers, correct? I think that's what they don't have to bid essentially on.
Right. Yeah. So
guys.
The way it works now is you have an allotment of money, like a pool of money you can use to sign players. And the international signing period is so bizarre. I went yesterday and looked up the past like 10 classes. And Aram and I talk about this a lot. Like putting out a bunch of like $75,000 bids on a ton of players is so much better than like going after the top talent. If you look at the 2012 international top 10, the only player you will know is like the backup catcher for the Mariners is on there, and that's it. And these people are making millions. Alfredo Rodriguez, who played with the Bats last year, is like a $7 million international signee, 26 years old, never made it to the majors. Like Ellie De La Cruz, one of the Reds' top prospects, $65,000. It's just a complete crapshoot when you're talking about, you know, 15-year-old kids or, you know, 16-year-old kids and scouting them and trying to project how they'll be when not only they're older, but when they come to a different country. Like everything is so hard with it. So,
well, and let's be honest, how much money is being moved under the table to guys who are already in these countries, hired by the teams to go and just funnel money to these families so that when they do make an offer, they take that offer from that team because they've already been siphoning them money under the table.
Anyone interested in team construction, roster construction, this book right here called Future Value came out, I think, last year or so, and this is excellent. It's all about they talk about the international draft, they talk about drafting minors, just all ways to build a team, and it's honestly disgusting. Just hearing about the international draft and kind of everything around it.
Ed, next week, 90-second review.
On that
You
book.
Yeah, you need to on a.
I will
book.
say it's a really good book, but you have to be so baseball nerdy to enjoy it. Like you just really have to love roster construction, which I
And
did.
I'm-
I read it in like 4 days, I think.
I'm in it. Yeah.
Ed's not gonna have that ready.
No
Get
shot.
that ready for me.
Ed
He's not
can't
gonna
even
read
show
the
up to his show on time. How's he going to read a book in a week? Have you changed clothes?
Wardrobe change.
I did. I changed into a hoodie. Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
I didn't either.
I'm sorry.
So you also had the competitive tax thresholds that changed. You have larger tax hits at 250 million, 270 million, 290 million. Very close to what the previous CBA had. One thing that was brought up through the negotiations that I thought that was perhaps something that would, I don't know, limit tanking, which Rob Manfred said, we're not going to have an issue with tanking.
No, we know problems with tanking.
Beg to differ. Again, the Reds are in
Sell your
shambles.
whole damn team.
They're not tanking. Nick Kroll said they're not.
Oh no,
Yeah, okay.
this is strategic.
I feel so bad for that guy. We'll get to
Somebody
that.
just- yeah.
We'll get to that. But there's no floor. And I feel like you could have alleviated a lot of the problems. I don't think that the owners would have gone for it because you have teams like, I don't know, the Rockies and the Reds and Tampa Bay and Oakland and Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
The Rockies are trying to sign Chris Bryant right now, by the way. Can you believe that?
No.
Is that the guy from Middletown?
No, Ed.
No.
Oh.
The Rockies are in pursuit of Chris Bryant, which is absurd on so many levels.
Yeah.
Is that just to like draw excitement because they're like we want fans to come watch one guy?
It makes zero sense, and honestly, Chris Bryant going there would make no sense unless he just wants to live in Colorado and hit 50 home runs
Bombs.
a year.
Have a Brady Anderson year.
He's gonna be their DH.
No,
Yeah, he can play all over the place, but
every position.
I'm kind of surprised. Maybe I'm not. Yeah, I am. I'm kind of surprised. Like in sports, you don't ever see like a random really good player just like say screw it. Like I just want to live in this situation, and I don't care about the team. It would take like a Ricky Williams, if you all remember him, big pot guy in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like he's the type that'd be like, oh man, like I just really love the idea of living in Colorado. Like don't care at all. I'm going to play for the Broncos. Like who cares? Like I'm surprised we haven't seen that really.
He's got a dispensary in California. He makes a weekly appearance on the Dan Le Batard
Really?
show. Yeah.
Who does?
And he reads people's astrology, which should surprise no one.
Yeah. His 30 for 30 is good. If
Yes,
you have
it
not
is.
seen that.
Who?
Ricky Williams,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
the running back for the
We're talking about you, Ed.
Ed's dispensary.
It's right there next to my drone that I flew over Paul Brown Stadium.
So
Oh man.
again, they don't have a floor, and now you have harsher tax, luxury tax for those who are spending entirely too much money. Looking at ULA, both of you. So what do you think they could have done with the salary cap? Because I think that's the biggest issue with baseball is you have so much disparity between the teams that are at the top, between the teams that are at the bottom. You have, we found out today that it went public that you have $54 million in TV revenue share going to every single team this season, not counting, your, like, that's just national revenue share. That's not counting your local deals like Bally's for the Reds. That's not counting your radio deals. That's not counting your advertising all over everything, including the jerseys this season. So, like, what are we? I mean, what am I missing here? Like, why don't we have a salary floor? Why do we have a salary cap that people still aren't going to give a shit about?
I have no idea why they don't have it. I'm a big pro salary cap in sports guy, and I could talk about that for 2 straight hours. I will
We don't
not
have time
do
for that today.
Yeah. But even like, so there's ways like in other sports, like kind of get around the salary floor thing too. Like
Well, the NBA is really good at it, as they will just sign players to terrible contracts just to get to the floor.
Right now in the NBA, Oklahoma City's not at the salary floor. And the way that works is if they do not reach that by the end of the season, the difference between their total payroll right now and the salary floor, whatever that number is, gets distributed to the players. So it could be used, and I would see baseball doing this, right? Like, let's just call the salary floor 50 million. Reds or Pirates are at 30 million. They're like, oh, we're like, we want to keep some of these young players. Why don't we just not make that salary floor and distribute the funds to them to make them, happy? Like, oh, wow, they really did me a solid. Now I don't think that will ever happen, but yeah, I think the salary cap is something that's needed. I think it's just incredibly difficult to implement into a sport. You'd have to grandfather it in. I mean, Fernando Tatis signed like a 10-year deal or something. Like, are you just going to slap a salary cap?
25-year deal.
Whatever he does,
he's signed until he's 54.
And he has okay, quickly. Fernando Tatis broke his wrist this week, and they asked him about they asked him about his motorcycle accident, and he said, which one? Yeah,
he said he's had like numerous minor motorcycle accidents during the lockout, I guess, during the off season. Like,
could you imagine being like the owner and just sitting there and hearing him say which one, and you go,
I mean, are we talking about like street bikes, or are we talking about like dirt bikes?
Well, I mean, even if it was in his contract that he's not allowed to ride a motorcycle, you can't say shit. You locked them out.
Yeah, he didn't have a contract.
Yeah, that's true.
But then you look at you talk about that, but then you look at like the A's, and they signed Matt Olson to like 8 years, $168 million.
Braves, not the A's.
That's what I meant. He came from he played for the A's.
He was traded yesterday, I believe, or 2 days ago from the A's to the Braves and immediately signed a contract extension. Freddie Freeman on the open market. Cincinnati Reds?
No. No shot.
They already have a first baseman.
I mean, we could talk about that in a minute when we get down to the Reds silliness. One thing we didn't talk about though in the playoffs, and with it being like a little bit different now, is that there's no reseeding after the wild card round, so you could potentially have a 1 seed playing a 4 and a 2 seed playing a 6, which I guess if you're in the playoffs at that point, maybe it's not that big of a disparity, but still, you're not reseeding worst to the top kind of thing.
I've never really been a fan of like the reseeded playoffs in any sport. I just think I don't know. I just don't like it. I just like the way it, a bracket
just play the bracket how it comes in.
Yeah, you play who you play. Like, that's just I don't like the idea of the reseeding. And
could you imagine if they reseeded the NCAA tournament after every round? Like,
it'd be a shit show.
Right.
Everyone's awful. Brackets would be busted.
Yeah, it would be terrible. I don't know. I like that. I like that little change that they did there. And I know we here on this show have talked about reducing the number of regular season games down to like 120, 124, like somewhere in that range, where where baseball is being played only kind of in the summertime, so that you're not sitting in a stadium while it's snowing, or
the Bearcats
opening day in snow last year. So
the Bearcats ran into that just the other day, and they had a game canceled against Kansas. Why did that happen? Well, let me tell you. Kansas, as part of the Big 12, you see will be entering very shortly, does not play in the entire conference will not play a game that the first pitch is below 32 degrees. Nor should you. It's baseball. Like, I'm not trying to, I mean, we've all swung a bat before. If you catch it at the wrong spot, it stings. Doing that under 32 degrees is terrible.
I mean, there was a college game just the other day that were like, it was a
blizzard.
Yeah.
Was it Louisville? It was like you couldn't like really, how do you hit a baseball whenever it's like snowing sideways?
I don't think they will change the number from 162, at least not for a while. And whenever we talk about stuff like as drastic as that, we always say exactly what I just said. They won't do it because baseball is such a statistical sport, and if you start tinkering with the number of games, as we saw in 2020, 60 games, it's hard to, the stats are all so drastically different. I just don't think baseball people would want that. Evan, of course, says he wants 200 games. That's because you don't leave your house, Evan.
Joey Votto said that a couple years ago, didn't he?
He did.
He did. I think I have the sound clip somewhere on this computer.
Personally, I don't really have much of an opinion. Like I'd watch it either way of whatever it is. I just don't think it will happen. But we've always said that it won't change. This won't change. It does change, and 10 years later, no one could care less about.
And a lot of the arguments that agents make, for paying their guy more, whatever are based off of statistics. And then when you skew it, I can see that when you skew it by, less games, like you're messing with those numbers, potentially inflating them to the point where, you're like, well, he's looks like he's way better than he is. And you sign these crazy deals that there needs to be, like when we talked about the salary cap, the other thing I was going to bring up was there was an agent, and obviously like they have a different point of view on things, but they brought up the fact that a salary cap in the MLB, I guess the way the NFL does it is like there's also like some revenue sharing that goes on that requires the owners to open their books, and the owners in the MLB, their books are all closed, and so there's not this like free-flowing amount of information about how much a team is really making and how much, are they really sitting on this big pot of money that they have that they could be spending to make their team better, but instead they're keeping it for themselves? Or is it a situation where really they are cash strapped, but right now the books are all closed? So you've got everybody like us, who believe, they've got the money. Why aren't you spending it to make your team better? And, we're still sitting in the stands, cheering on, AA and AAA guys.
Forbes reported that the Reds lost $47 million last season.
There was a tweet that said that.
Forbes.com wrote an entire article about it.
No. Thank you.
Are you talking about the Jeff Passan tweet about when he sent out the screenshot of the like tables of money and accounting? Twitter had a field day trying to explain to him what all these numbers mean.
No.
So Jeff, I wanted to touch on what you said. First, the NFL salary cap is not a hoax, but it's damn near one. And it's different in the NFL with the salary cap. And it's a lot more complicated. But they don't have guaranteed contracts, right? So we see it all the time. A 3-year deal in the NFL a lot of times is structured as a 1-year deal. And you have an amount of dead cap. You save, $6 million deal for each year for 3 years. But in reality, year 2, you either get cut with $400,000 dead cap. They put on what they call dummy years at the end. So it's built in dead cap if you want to move on. They turn base salaries into signing bonuses. They circumvent the salary cap of the NFL. You truly have to like specialize in NFL salary cap to understand all of it.
I was going to say, like, especially now with like, and we'll talk about, the Bengals later on, but like, especially with them being competitive and starting to spend money and things and being like, oh,
weird.
Look at this money that they've got. Like, who can they sign? And you see some of these contracts coming out and you're like, well, I don't exactly understand how that hits. And like, well, if we cut this guy and this guy, we're going to save this much in the salary cap. We can turn it around here.
Yeah. So quickly, not to talk about the NFL, but very quickly, those deals that are reported always never go off the original reported deal. The reason why is because agents report incentives because they want to get out my player signed 4 years, $100 million. In reality, it's 4 years, $60 million, up to $100 million, but it's how the agent projects himself. I got my player $100 million. You know what I mean? So the NFL thing and salary cap is such a ridiculous thing, and we cannot go down it because it's so complicated.
I will say I do feel like I've been seeing a lot more like things where they have some guarantees, like guaranteed.
Yeah, so they're guaranteed X amount of salary, and that's protection for the player if they were to get cut. But in reality, half of the contracts that are reported are not anything close to the actual money that it will be. There's likely incentives as well, which you have to factor in. I'm ready to move on. I don't see
that's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down. I know.
Sign Joe Burrow now.
So, in essence, the minor leaguers did come out ahead from where they were in the new CBA, to where maybe these guys aren't going to have to be 4 to a hotel room. Maybe they're not going to have to be eating ramen and macaroni and cheese every night as they're trying to somehow also build strength to continue playing the game of baseball while eating dollar cheeseburgers from McDonald's.
Yeah, the hard thing about the minor league life is the time. So you get to the ballpark at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. By the time you get home, it's late, and the only thing available is Uber Eats or whatnot. And they're not delivering a salad from a good salad place. I mean, you know what I mean? There's only so many options, right. And it's just a constant struggle. I've talked to a couple of minor league players, moms, who have told me these stories of how it's like nearly impossible to cook, and their living situations are tough, getting a lease, and then your roommates get called up or traded, and next thing you know, you're on the hook. It's the amount of stress alone of being a minor leaguer, in terms of just living your life, is a lot. So yeah, the minor leaguers are going to be better off, which I think is something that everyone's been kind of looking for a few years.
I think some of the things that are included are even meals at this point now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's huge for them. There's also 5 options now to the minors before you hit the waivers, which that's going to be a big deal. Although you do have expanded rosters now. I believe the number is 27, if I'm not mistaken, 26.
I'm actually not sure on that.
Oh, yeah. Caught Clay off guard.
Wow, Nick Kirby. Who the hell's Nick Kirby? I thought it was Nick Kroll or something.
Oh man.
Hey, but the 5 minor league options, I do want to talk about that. That's good and bad.
Hang on, Clay. Hey, Nick, we got your guy before you could get him to talk to CBA. We beat you.
The thing is,
he was our guy first.
Nick has not asked me on to talk about the CBA, but to be honest with you, talking about the CBA is not nearly as fun as the topics we will get to. But so I'll try to speed through this. But the 5 minor league options things I actually think is bad, and the reason why is because you can just hold on to certain players longer that maybe should get a different chance. Now there's the Rule 5 and there's arbitration and whatnot, but that's the negative part of it, right? You can just send players up and down for a much longer time before exposing them to waivers. Positive is maybe some players are going to get more of an opportunity, knowing that you can send them down a couple more times before going to waivers. They're more likely to call them up if need be, instead of signing somebody off the streets or bringing up a Mike Freeman or whatever. I don't know. God, I shit on Mike Freeman every single podcast I go on anywhere. I don't know why. He's just the first name to come to mind.
Who was the outfielder that got sent to Japan last year that Reds Twitter liked to shit on?
Oh, Scott Heineman. Yeah, they came at me like, buddy.
He did. He
were ass.
Clay on.
He literally was he tweeted at me. I did not tag him. I said his name. He's tweeting at me. I said, "You have a game in 2 hours, Scott, and you're searching your name on Twitter. Like, what the hell? No wonder why you're in the minors. Go to batting practice. You need it."
He's one of those guys that searches his name.
Oh my god, that's funny.
See how angry?
I'm so happy. I'm so happy I brought that guy up.
Scott Heineman.
That's one of my favorite Twitter interactions of all time.
It was hilarious.
When Clay tweeted it out, and then he was in the mentions right away.
I think so. I don't know if I said this or not. So I was in Kansas City, and this is when the Reds were in Kansas City. I was.
Yeah, it's when you went to the Sizzler.
So I was in Kansas City, and this is when the Reds were there. And I remember sitting there thinking, should I send a picture of the stadium and say, I'm here and you're not? And I thought I was going to. And I was like, dude, no. Like, he's just going to tell me about how, like, he's made the major leagues and I haven't. I didn't do that. At least I don't think I did. But I remember thinking, like, man, I should just
go all in.
Yeah, I should tell him, like, I'm in Kansas City and you're searching your name from eating a PB&J before the Bats game. He gets a lot more money than me, so
right.
I mean,
you were going to make a point before Nick Kirby, before I started gloating to Nick Kirby that we had you, and he didn't.
I made my point about the options. That's all I had to say. It's a positive and negative. I'm gonna be interested to see how it's actually used. This is like the CNL Perez thing, where like he's just up and down all year. Like,
yeah.
Well, there's also a service time. They fixed some of the service time where now like the top two rookie of the year vote getters get a full year of service time. Teams get compensatory picks for carrying any guy that finishes in the top 3 in rookie of the year, MVP, Cy Young, etc.
Yeah, like, does that really do anything?
Not the MVP or the Cy Young. Let's be real.
Like, I mean, anyone that's good enough to be in the top 3 of those votings is going to be on the team. So likely their service, the only thing it'll affect will be their next contract, but it's not going to affect like a lot of calling up or sending down people. I don't think. I
don't know that it's. I think that would just make a team like the Cubs some years back with Chris Bryant. That would just make them wait longer to make sure he doesn't get rookie of the year votes. Like,
right. Like, on the front end of things, like,
get through the first 2-3 months and then bring him up.
Instead of sending somebody like that. It's the top 5 in MVP and Cy Young, which, it stretches a little bit, but if you've got a rookie that's going to land in the top 5 of MVP or Cy Young, he's going to land in the top 3 in rookie of the year,
right?
Voting. So, and then they get maybe an extra year service time counted for them, and then you get an extra pick, but that doesn't really stretch out along. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like that affects what most teams are going to do with their up and coming talent. If they're good enough to be up and get those kind of votes, they're going to be up for the season. Like, they're not going to send them down and leave them down.
I think if you start more than 20 games in a season, and it'd be 5 for pitchers, that should count as your first year. Like, you're up there actually helping the team.
This happens in hockey as well. So in hockey, if you play more than 9 games, you start your entry-level contract. So it happens in hockey where a player will play 9 games and they go back to juniors. And nobody complains about it the way that they do in baseball. And the reason why is because your entry-level contract's 3 years in hockey. So why don't do something with that structure in baseball if you want to incentivize people to be brought up earlier or stick, instead of having these like 28 years of arbitration and team control. Probably a different topic for a different day. We're 43 minutes of CBA talk and haven't even talked about the the Cincinnati Reds.
I like how Ed just continues to get dunked on. All right. So, all right. I really wish we could delete that. So, okay. We've made it past the CBA. And the Reds are in shambles.
You didn't talk about the draft lottery, did you?
Can we talk about that at the end?
Yeah, we can do that at the end.
Okay.
You can bring that up at the end. I know you really want to.
Is anybody watching anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Chad is. He's really enjoying the show, guys.
Yeah,
so the Reds.
It's better when your knee isn't knocking your desk.
I didn't realize it. I'm sorry. I just stopped.
Appreciate it. So the Reds are in shambles. And
are they though?
Let's go back to where this all started. The Reds trade Tucker Barnhart. Good with it, because you have a younger, better catcher. Literally already here. Not even waiting in the wings. He's already here. Younger, better catcher. Cheaper even. You also have Wade Miley, who I feel like the Reds just completely mishandled at the end there. Didn't get
Maybe
anything.
Clay can explain that a little better so I can actually like understand what people were talking about with like eating. I guess they owed him like $1 million to. They owed him like $1 million to keep him around to trade him, or they could
Are
release
you talking
him.
about Wade Miley?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what happened with the Reds there was, yes, so they would have had to take on a little bit of money, or they could have picked up his option, right? $10 million. I don't think that there were the suitors that everyone thought that there would be. And simply, now granted, I think somebody would have taken him on for something. I don't know. That situation was so weird. And it's hard to say because there wasn't a lot that I could find or think of off the top of my head that's like, oh yeah, I remember this exact situation in the past with some other player on some other team. Like, it was bizarre. But even Tucker got, in my opinion, a C level prospect for him. Maybe Miley's age, soft, pitches to soft contact, people just weren't wanting to spend $10 million on that, which I don't agree with. Because I know, and that's the thing. I'm just trying to work through the thought process.
Yeah.
There wasn't one.
He had his own fan club here.
Did have
I don't know
club.
about Wade Miley. Moving off Tucker was smart. I love the fit with Detroit. I love it. Detroit's a good team right now. They're not great. They're on the come up. They also have a young catcher, Dylan Dingler, who I'm really high on, and I think he's going to be great to work with Tucker. And he's in a position to play a mentor role again and get more at bats than he would have gotten in Cincinnati. It's a win-win for both sides.
So then you also have, more recently than Wade Miley, the Reds move on from Sonny Gray earlier this week. They pick up an 18-year-old by the name of Chase Petty. He was, I believe, the 26th, if I'm not mistaken, overall pick in the 2021 draft. And you also throw in Francis Peguero from the Reds, who I've not even heard of. I didn't even know he was in our system. I don't believe his name is even on MLB The Show, if I'm being completely honest. So he's all right. There's your bag of balls, literally. So the Reds make a move, and then you have that followed up by another move, which is, if we're reading between the leaves, it sounds like the fire sale is on, and it sounds like the only ones that haven't been yet traded, and we'll see what happens before week's end, before the All-Star break, however it ends up going. Luis Castillo, wouldn't be surprised to see him go. I don't know that you can move Joey Votto, but he'd be another big number. I would think you'd have to package him with a younger guy or two to get that number off your books if you're really that just dead set on getting his number off your books. And then you also have the third baseman,
Mike
Moose. Yeah, Moose. So
Tyler Malley as well is another option that could be traded.
Sure. I mean, considering, I guess we're trying to get to the point where Ken Griffey Jr. is actually your highest paid player this year.
Yeah.
He's number 6 right now.
By the way, I did not know we were still paying King Griffey Jr.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure I want to say we're still paying Bronson Arroyo as well. It's just not that number.
Yeah.
That's a lot to unpack, Clay. So why don't you start with
so why don't I
who
do
is
this?
Chase
Why don't I
Petty?
start with the Sonny Gray trade, and we can talk about that. Then we go into the Winker Suarez.
Try and sell us on why we should be excited about any of this.
Okay, so I wrote back in December for Just Baseball about the Reds' off-season plan, and one of my first things was to trade Sonny Gray. And I, as many people know, am pretty positive. I'm not even necessarily positive. Everyone thinks I'm positive and optimistic because I'm not negative. I just try not to get mad on Twitter over things I can't control.
I think that you are sneakily the trolliest of the trolls.
100%.
I do troll sometimes, and people don't pick up on it, but it doesn't matter because I
You
know in
have
back of
the
my head.
receipts for days
Yeah.
on all of us, all of us in this podcast.
I will
right
let
now.
a little secret out to anyone that watches or listens to this. If it's a tweet that I know I could somehow slam you in the future, I bookmark it. So I have plenty of ammo. But let's get to the Sonny Gray trade. I thought it was time to move off from him, mostly because, there's been some injury concerns. He had a really attractive contract, and he is a good pitcher. I don't think he's on the decline. I don't think the Reds couldn't have used him. I just know that if you wanted to make this team better, because there were flaws and they needed a bat, they maybe needed a center fielder, there's other things that they needed, trade from a position of strength. Starting pitching, they have Lodolo, Green, Ashcraft. There were some players that they could fill in. You could sign somebody there if you needed a vet to eat innings. It just all made sense. With his contract being $10 million plus the $12 million option, essentially a 2-year contract, you could get an attractive piece back. And that was my whole mentality. Get out a year early as opposed to a year late, as we saw with the last rebuild, where the Reds waited too long to trade everyone, essentially. The return, I'm not going to lie, I was a little underwhelmed. And I'm not going to act, I feel like I probably have a better grasp on some of these prospects than the average person who's on Twitter. And everyone reacting immediately, just like saying like, oh, this is a shit return. Like, dude, you've never seen Chase Petty throw a baseball. Like, shut up. He's
So
18
does that mean
years
that
old.
you have Ed's tweet saved? Where
I actually do know. So I was out fly fishing all day
He has
Sunday.
he has a lot of my tweets saved. They just show up randomly in the group chat.
Yeah, I do have one of yours. That's hilarious. That's just like, can we end this now? And I don't know when I'll use it, but I will eventually out of context. But Chase Petty, I mean, he has a good fastball. He's 18 years old, plus fastball, plus slider. And you can go on about what he has. The reality is, high school pitchers who throw fast are the number one bust percentage of any position. And that is why I think a lot of people were upset, is because it truly is a lottery ticket. I did not get to read that comment, so if that was something about this, Chase Petty is a lottery ticket, and he's years and years and years away. I think that they had him at 2025.
the graphic
However, he is a good prospect. Aram updated the Gist Baseball top 10 for the Reds this afternoon, and he slotted in number 6. And to give you an idea, okay, what's that mean? Well, Ellie De La Cruz, who everyone's geeking about, is number 5. And number 7 is Alan Serta, who I've talked about plenty on here. So he's a good prospect. I personally was just thinking they would go a different direction with the return. That one's fine. I want to hear what you all have to think about Sonny before we go on to the next trade, because I think it's interesting. But I did not think that they would get a massive return. I just thought, okay, well, here's a lottery ticket, first round draft pick. I mean, okay, that's fine.
I mean, I liked Sonny, and I know there's been some conversation over in the chat about how he did have some shoulders, some back stuff that's happened that's kept him out, that's prevented him from making some starts.
His Twitter likes were suspect.
I don't know anything about any of that.
You are lucky you don't.
But yeah, I fall in the same boat with Clay, that like it was a good time to move on, and it is one of those things where, like, if you look back at the last rebuild or restructuring or whatever they want to call it, the biggest complaint from every Reds fan, like if you go back to Twitter back then, like, was that they waited too long to move anybody and they got nothing back.
Brandon Phillips, Aroldis Chapman.
Right. So, and Aroldis Chapman was a special situation, but it is what it is. Whereas, like, you move on from Sonny Gray, you get this Chase Petty kid. I mean, I don't know who that other guy was, Paguero or whatever that we talked about it. He's just an extra guy that got thrown in. Clay actually shared a graphic from one of the, I guess the scouting of him when he was in high school that mentioned his plus fastball, his plus slider, his plus changeup, that he projected to be, a pretty workhorse, pitcher in your lineup, in your rotation. Or he could be, if he can't develop another pitch, he could be a pretty dominant guy out of the bullpen if he can get his command under control. He's 18 years old. That's something that can work on. Like Clay says, he's a lottery ticket. And that specific graphic, I think, projected him at like 2026, which obviously, as Reds fans, we look at that and we're like, okay, you get rid of a guy that can start games tomorrow, and you bring in a guy that's not going to start games for 4 years from now, maybe 3 if he comes up a little bit early, if he moves along in the minors at that pace.
The biggest issue I have with all of this, with any of this, going back to Wade Miley and the mishandling of that contract, going back to maybe not Tucker, but I mean certainly talking about Sonny Gray, it's the beginning of the end. And this team had a roster that, if you go back and you re-sign Nick Castellanos, which we haven't even talked about how the Reds didn't even reach out to his agent, which is beyond me.
We'll get to that.
We'll get there. But what was 2014 through 2019 for? Like, Ed, knee. Goodness. In the middle of a rant. But what was it for when we're being sold on this rebuild and everyone's trying to buy in? We've heard rebuild before. I mean, pretty much anything post 1990 through the 90s, outside of 96, I think. It's been just a shit show, a giant shit show. And they don't know what they're doing with a roster, to the point where all of a sudden the fire sale is on, but we didn't ever really get contention. The rebuild never completed. They just left an abandoned building without anyone ever getting there. It's maddening that they just don't know how to rebuild. Even though they continue to sell us on a rebuild, they can't actually get the rebuild complete.
You had a team that won 83 games last year, and there were some holes that they needed to fill. Shortstop was not one. Nick Kirby. We love Kyle Farmer here at PTP.
Kyle Farmer's the man.
But obviously that's just a joke that's been kind of ongoing for a year. But you've got this team that potentially everyone, at least Reds fans, look at it and say, if you just go add a couple pieces, you've got a team that could make a run. Right? Like, you've got a team that they were in it if there wasn't an epic collapse at the end of the year.
And how do you make more money? If you're trying to run a business, how do you make more money in the business of sports? Put a winning team on the field,
or bobbleheads.
No.
So I do want to touch on the rebuild and how it went sideways. There's 2 things that jump off the page to me. First thing is the Moustakas contract. That contract just didn't work out. It wasn't a bad idea. It was aggressive. They overpaid because that's what you had to do. When you're rebuilding, you usually have to overpay the first player to show the others in free agency, okay, maybe they are going to be serious. They overpaid a little bit, and that one just didn't work out. And that's okay. Not all of them will. The biggest issue with me was the fact that the Castellanos contract, having the opt-outs, was the only way to get him to Cincinnati. And it's part. I mean, if you still had him for 2 more years, do you think this would all be happening? Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, they would probably
guaranteed for 2 more years here. You mean, as opposed to having these like, if he wants to leave, he can leave with
right. That's what I'm saying. If it was a straight up 4-year contract, instead of these opt-outs. Maybe you aren't trying to rebuild. Maybe you do add. I don't know. It all comes, if you said no, they would just trade him. Like, there's nothing I can do to argue that, because that's what evidence is kind of showing. And it really didn't work out. And maybe they're saying as ownership, okay, the last one we really screwed up because we waited far too long and we got Dilson Herrera. We got Ricky Davis and John Lamb, and we got trash returns. And it just, those didn't work out. Nothing panned out with the last rebuild. If they think that, there's one thing that needs to be said too. This team had flaws. Every team does, sure. But it wasn't like this was some perfect team or anything like that. They had to add to get to the playoffs. If they wanted to get to the playoffs next year, they would have had to add in several spots. I think that's what they should have done. I'm not saying they should have rebuilt, but I think what's happening with ownership is not only, yes, they're being cheap, but they also saw what happened with the last rebuild and how much of a hole it dug them into. And they're trying, oh shit, well, I don't want to do that again. We need to sell high on these guys and see if we can kind of recoup. And what my article talks about that's coming out tomorrow on justbaseball.com is this isn't a 14 through 19 or 5. This isn't a 5-year rebuild. And it won't be. It doesn't have to be. I guess they could make it one if they wanted to be. India, Stevenson, Lodolo, Green, Williamson. Senzel's still around. Who knows what he'll be? Everyone knows how I feel about Senzel. So, but I have to add him because he's a top 2 pick, and he's still under team control and young. I mean,
and potentially Moustakas could turn things around this year.
So my thing is 2024. That's what they're building towards. That's 2 years down the road. I'm not saying this to make people feel good or make people say,
but you can't be mad at anybody that's out on this team this year. Why would anyone want to line anyone
I totally agree.
In the Castellini ownership group? Why would anyone want to give any money into their pocket right now?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the like, obviously, like a lot of the anger that comes out of this fan base, for one, is like, it's such a storied franchise, and like everybody that is a Reds fan, like through and through, is like, we look back fondly on lots of the things that this organization has done, and it's failed to replicate those things on a consistent basis ever, it seems like. And then you go into a rebuild from 14 to 19, and you're told like things here are going to get better. We're going to have championships. When Castellini bought the team, and he's like, we're bringing championships back here. We're going to do these things, and then they don't. And then you've got a guy like Dick Williams, who it seems like he was doing a decent job, or like building things in a way, and then he's just out. Like he's like, I think I'm going to go like fly fishing and not get bothered by baseball anymore,
because they told him he had to trade everybody.
Right. So you've got that, and then you install this guy, Nick Kroll, and like, I don't, whatever, he doesn't seem to be able to put into words the thoughts he has in his head without like making the fan base feel like the team is just gonna run a Florence Y'alls out there,
because he can't tell the
major
truth.
league competition.
He can't tell the truth. Because if he did,
he's a PR nightmare. I mean, he seriously is. He has not said anything that's comfortable. He has not said anything that's safe. It's truly disturbing to think.
He's from the Manfred School of Communication.
But I want to focus on one thing about all of these trades, and we could sit here all night and say, we
just miss you, Clay. We just miss you.
We could sit here all night and talk about how bad the Reds are for doing this. And I agree, but that's not going to do much for us. So what I think we should just focus on is, okay, now that we know this is the direction they're going, what do they need to do between now and their next contention window? And if that's 2 years in 2024, Votto off the books, Moustakas off the books, they don't have a single person under contract right now through 2024. You have players under arbitration. That could be a team with a low payroll. And I'm not trying to like hype this up, get everyone interested. I'm just saying, like, I'm painting a picture of what the future could look like. 2024 is a legitimate beginning of contention window where you saw in 2019, you add all those free agents. That could happen in 2024. Votto likely retires. He'll be, 42, 41. Moustakas is gone. And you right now, my main focus, what I want to see the next 2 seasons is, okay, if Jonathan India is the real deal, buy out his arbitration. Go ahead and pay, get him under contract. Be smarter like that if you're the front office and you want to show something to fans. Show that you're being proactive. Show that you're being proactive by getting Stevenson under contract. Green, Lodolo, all the young arms. Barrero needs to start at shortstop. Get them their reps in 2022. Let them learn. Because the way it works is prospects come up and everyone thinks, not everyone, but a lot of people think, oh, Hunter Green, bring him in to the rotation. He's going to be what he is projected to be in year 1. And that doesn't happen. Let him get his lumps year 1, year 2. If you look at most successful MLB players, once they start getting a couple years into the league is when they start to actually hit their peak, right?
Hunter
Show
Green
you what they are, kind of thing. Like
Hunter Green wasn't good in 2022 on MLB The Show. Just saying.
Oh my God! So okay, if we can trade
That
Hunter
translates
Green,
to real baseball real well.
Just saying.
yeah, Ian
it's a
Happ
clear
is
line.
awesome on the show, and Ian Happ is so
A Bearcat is what he is. He's a Bearcat.
Is he really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But my biggest thing is that's what we sit here and talk about, right? We're saying that this looks like a rebuild. It sounds like a rebuild. You've got them saying that they need to align things with their resources, which
We want to get rid of peaks and valleys.
which tells like Aaron says, you stop crying poor, eliminating peaks and valleys. Like it just all sounds like all of these excuses about it. And there is theoretically a positive light in that thought of let's not, drop way down here for so long and they go up for a year and then we're back down here for 5 years and whereas maybe we just keep it higher for longer by having guys to in the farm system to replace and the money to bring guys in when we need to bring guys in. And then you've got Nick Kroll who's like, oh, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This isn't a rebuild. Like we're going to be active in the free agent market. Like we're looking in the free agent market. This isn't a rebuild. Like what is it? Like just come out and say what you're doing. The fans, while we might not like it, we certainly don't like what we're seeing and being told now. Just be honest about it. Tell us what the plan is. Is it 2024? Like, is Clay Snowden right? Is 2024 the target year that we're looking for to have a team that is, looking at potentially winning a World Series, or is it maybe 2026 when a guy like Chase Petty's coming up? Like, what is it? How do these pieces fit in to the plan that we are building and working towards? Because nobody understands, and that's why you got kids standing out in front of Great American Ballpark holding like picket signs about sell the team, Bob.
Means nothing, but I think it's so funny. Like just the fact that his name's Bob just makes it all sound like even more of a joke. If his name was like Douglas, it would sound so much worse. But just Bob,
Sell the team, Douglas.
Sounds so made up.
I mean, I will say there was a great sign down there that said like this is the worst Bob the Builder ever. Like,
wow, yeah, that's actually.
I think honestly that's what a lot of like fans. Honestly, we're fed up with not having a direction and feeling like the team doesn't know where they're going, and they keep coming out with like
we're being lied to. That's it.
These sound bites that, like you said, sound horrible, PR nightmare, and we just own up to it. Tell us what's going on.
Peaks and valleys is stupid because people are going to take that way too literal. That's just a term he wants to use for inconsistency. Really, he should have said that because then people are going to say, as they did, "Oh, you want to eliminate the peaks?" Like, obviously, no. He just does not know how to talk.
We're still in the valley, and it's getting deeper.
Yeah,
right. So
yeah, but we need to talk about the move with Jesse Winker.
Yes,
and.
Sorry, I had to rant.
Yeah, we went off on a tangent here with that, but then you had the Winker and Suarez to the Mariners.
So in this move, the Reds get, and again, I want to clarify this because people think I'm just the most optimistic, and people are coming at me. Twitter's the only place in the world where you get trashed for being positive, but it's not even that I'm optimistic. I'm not typically going to get angry and mad over things I cannot control. I'll get sad, and I am sad that the Reds are doing this, but I'm not going to like sit there and like come at people in a way that's like demoralizing. Now, if you tell me you're never going to watch the Reds again, I'm just going to search your Twitter for Bengals and pull up a tweet from last year when you said you're never going to watch the Bengals again.
Jeff.
Which I've done to several people, fair weather fans. Okay, this trade.
I'm never going to watch the Bengals again.
Justin Dunn was a top 100 prospect, maybe 2017 or 18. Last year was supposed to be his kind of time to be in the rotation for the Mariners. And I watched a few of his starts. I watched a ton of Mariners baseball last year. It's just the funnest team to watch.
I bet you're watching a lot more this year too.
Yeah, he has good stuff.
That's also
I
not
think
a word.
He's kind of like he was to the Mariners what Vlad Gutierrez is to the Reds. Exciting young player, not perfect, has good breaking stuff. I think he's very, very similar. He's going to slot in right away into this rotation and have a chance. Now he's been injured some, so I don't know where he is on that, but I don't think he's going to be bad. I don't think that like people are going to think, this is not a Jeff Hoffman. And this is a trade where people were saying, we want now. I know this is different, but you want players who can help you now and in the future. This is a trade that does accomplish that, even though you're trading pieces that would help you now. So, but these aren't 18-year-olds, right? This is something that you can say, okay, well, at least they're getting some pieces that can help us this year. Jake Fraley is going to be a guy that fans are going to really enjoy watching. I'm not ready to say he's the Derek Dietrich fan favorite.
I was going to say, we've heard this come from you before, Clay.
Yeah, I like picking players who I think will be fan favorites.
Well, you just got rid of 2 fan favorites.
So there's plenty of room for a new one. Jake Fraley can play all outfield positions, more of a corner guy. He's a good fielder, though. He's one of those guys. He's kind of like a TJ Friedel.
This guy.
Projection, only just a better version of him.
Ed, can you pull up a picture of Drake Fraley?
I absolutely am right now.
I feel like if he's a top 5 handsome red, then he automatically becomes a fan favorite.
Aaron,
he's got a rockin' beard.
He might be a top 5 handsome red right here.
So what he does is he doesn't have a.
Oh
yeah, he's got a lot going on there.
That's a mane.
Let's say, look at that mane on him.
He is also really good friends with Reds 40-man roster Riley O'Brien. They both came up in the Tampa organization.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
However, he pitched one game against the White Sox last year. But
Ed's never heard of him.
Fraley, he's a good defender. Like I said, everything you think about TJ Friedel, he's just a little bit better, in my opinion, than him. So he'll play a bunch this year, I think. And then the last one was Brandon Williamson, and this is a guy who I like a lot, and I've wanted the Reds to target. What's that?
He's 6'6" lefty who played with Nick
6'6" lefty.
He played with Lodolo at TCU.
Is he a starter?
He is a starter, and everyone, and of course, I've said this before. I'll say it again. When you see a trade like this, do not type in Mariners top prospects and say, oh, we only got the 7th best prospect. That's literally the most loaded system in the MLB.
Is he a crafty lefty?
Just to give you, is he
a soccer player?
Those of you who don't know, there's a 20-80 scale, right? 20s low, 80s like elite. He has a 65 future curveball grade on that. So he has a good curveball, 55 fastball, 55 slider, 55 command. Solid pitcher all around. He is already, as RM updated the top 10 Reds, he's number 3 in the Reds.
A young Wade Miley.
No. He's ahead of Matt McClain and just under Hunter Green. But what he is he's 23 years old and he's ready. I don't think he'll start opening day like on the roster, but he'll definitely pitch with the Reds this year. And some
He
of
got a
his
spring
pitches,
training
if you
invite.
just Google him on Twitter. What's that?
He was a non-roster invitee to spring training already.
Yeah, he'll be in spring camp. But if you just search his name on Twitter and click videos, you'll find from an account called, I believe it's like Mariners Minors. Fantastic follow if you have any interest in the Mariners system, by the way. But he just has some nasty stuff, and I don't see. I could see this guy being a future 3 for the Reds, like Lodolo, Green, however you want to put it, Williamson. Like I could see that, if they got rid of other pitchers. But
and
I'm really high on him.
Lefties are hard to come by anyway.
Yeah, and he's, you know what, he's close to competing, and if 2024 is there, like I think it is, you bring in a guy who's going to be 25, then could have a year and a half, 40, 45 starts under his belt by then. I understand why they went after those targets. Now, what did they give up? Jesse Winker and Suarez. And, the Suarez thing was kind of a salary dump, change of scenery for him. I think it's kind of, honestly, kind of doing Suarez a favor here. The Mariners need a third baseman. Right now, it's Abraham Toro, who is not a starting caliber first baseman. You send him off and just let him get a fresh start somewhere. And Winker is a perfect fit for the Mariners. They have a lot of righty bats in the outfield /DH. They need a DH. Luis Torrens cannot be your, DH, or I guess Haniger's in right field. But
so Safeco is it's not, is it Safeco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or no, it's T-Mobile Park now.
Okay.
Stadium the Mariners play in.
Can't ever keep up. Good Lord. That's a deep park though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know that either of these guys are going to mash in that park. And Winker being your left fielder, if he does see any time, I think he slots in better as the DH, to your point. But if he sees any time in that outfield, that's a big outfield compared to our park.
Yeah, they have several outfield options that could just push him to the bench. I mean, Julio Rodriguez is 19 or 20 years old, best prospect in baseball, or top 3 no matter where you look. He'll be in the outfield somewhere. They still have Taylor Trammell as a depth option. They have Mitch Haniger, Kyle Lewis. I mean, they have plenty of options to play in the outfield. So I think he's going to primarily be a DH. That division has a lot of starters who are right-handed, so he's going to have every opportunity to be successful. And honestly, I just think it's a really good trade for those two players to go to a team that's exciting. It's a total change of scenery.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for them, especially for Suarez, who I just think really needed a fresh start. And is the return, the one issue with trading them to the Mariners is everyone, even if you don't follow prospects, has an idea of who Julio Rodriguez is or George Kirby. We were not getting either one of those, no matter what. That's next to untouchable. Suarez has flaws. Winker has flaws.
I mean,
they're both really good really good players, but neither one of them were ever going to get a return that high.
Like an elite level.
Yeah.
Like an elite level package was never coming back.
And some people are saying, oh, well, we should have gone after Hancock, who's ranked right above Williamson. Well, if you've watched Hancock at all, he was pretty inconsistent last year and didn't look great. And I think Williamson even jumped him in a few rankings in the Mariner system. I think the return is useful. It fills some needs now and in the future. I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, this is a great trade for the Reds. I'm just saying it could have been a lot worse than this in terms of just my initial reaction from it. The guys at Just Baseball love it. And those are guys who are intelligent about baseball, understand trades like no one I've seen. And they're not Reds fans. And they said it's a win-win. So
did Jeff Conine love it?
I will have, I'm maybe Arm will ask him, but
Because if he loves it, then maybe I feel a little bit different. But
I mean,
I think people saw it and said,
well, everybody saw Suarez, Winker gone, full stop. I don't care what we got back. If it's not their number one prospect or whatever, like I don't care, because we're losing these two guys that I love to root for in a Cincinnati Reds uniform, as opposed to let's look at it objectively. Everybody's looking at it in a very emotional way, because for one, everybody, like we've talked about, everybody is upset with the Reds.
We didn't expect a rebuild already. Again,
they can do, like, the Reds currently can do nothing right. I'm telling you that right now. They're like, short of them going out and like announcing that, like, they signed Freddie Freeman and Nick Castellanos and Chris Bryant and every single free agent that's out there that has a big name that people recognize. The Reds cannot fix this situation with the PR nightmare that has started, as Clay called it. Like,
they could sell the team.
And you know what? Like, obviously, like, okay, maybe that is a victory, but like, if they sell the team to somebody that comes in and does the exact same stuff, like, is that a win? Do you sell it to somebody that they don't really care about anything other than lining their pockets, and then we're in the same situation?
How often do you actually see an owner of a sports team sell? The reasons why they typically sell is if they absolutely go bankrupt, and what that has to do with is their initial source of income, right?
Well, so according to Willie Cunningham, he's losing $20 million a year.
All right.
Yeah, well, it's supplemented from his other sources of income that gave him the money to initially buy the team, right?
They just laid off 150 people at Chiquita.
So do you know what they do with that? That's becomes just like a tax write-off or some bullshit, probably. I don't know, but typically the owner has to die, or they have to go absolutely bankrupt from a different source.
The Marlins sold, and it's because they bought the team for somewhere around $100 million, $150 million, something like that, and sold it for like, I think it was something like close to $2 billion.
Yeah. I mean, it's profitable, and that's why not too many people sell. And I know exactly what the next thing's going to say. Well, then why aren't they spending? That's the thing. And that's the one worry about the 2024 thing, is they're going to be set up with such, projected good, young, controllable talent. The question, and it should work. It really should. You have enough that you can miss on players or prospects that you'll be okay. But the question becomes, when push comes to shove and it's time to spin, will they spin like they did in 2019? Or did that COVID year, as they're saying, right, impact them so much that they're not going to spend and fill in the holes?
You've got a guy like Kyle Boddy who, he left they parted ways, I guess amicably. They didn't see eye to eye on the way things, the way they wanted to do things or whatever. But he threw out a tweet, couple tweets in a row, saying that there's, generational talent coming up through, the Reds farm system right now, and they're set up eventually. Now, who all is he referring to? Is he only referring to, some of the pitchers he was working with? We lost Ed, it looks like. But who all is he referring to? Is he really talking about, numerous positions, just some of these pitchers he's worked with? Because obviously he's pretty high on a lot of these guys, and I know like Lodolo has taken hits from some talking heads as to like not being ranked as high as we all think he should be.
Keith Flaw,
yeah. So like, but
not putting Lodolo in the top 100.
Yeah, I mean that is what it is. But
I do want to touch on one more thing about the trade that we forgot to mention. There is a player to be named. Typically, player to be names in any trade are. So those of you who don't know what that means, what it means is the Reds were not ready to select a certain player. So they come to an agreement of a pool of players. So the Mariners select, who knows, 5 names for, easy understanding here, 5 names, and say these 5 names you can choose from at a later date. Typically in a trade, those are toss away prospects, kind of like the guy that went from the Reds in the Sonny Gray trade. Absolute lottery tickets who never even get close to the majors. However, in this situation, Kroll said, which who knows what we can believe and understand, but he said it was a legit player to be named. And from what I've been able to find out through Mariners Twitter world is that that's true. Like they think it's someone legit. And the one player I would be targeting is Perez. Milcar Perez. He's a third baseman who's like 20 years old or 19 years old and just raw. But he's like, let's see. He's number 12 in the Mariner system. But if you're getting a legit player to be named, I mean, that guy has a lot of tools. Super fast. He's going to be a third baseman. And I've watched him some, and he was a player I was keeping an eye on last year for whatever reason. I just have certain minor leaguers that I keep an eye on. I think that could be a player. If the Reds got that back too, I mean, to me, that's a fine trade.
So then, like, my question becomes, because I was going to bring it up that, you know, Nick Kroll said, like, they're really high on this player to be named later. You know, they're excited about who they're going to get there. And if they know who they're picking, if they know who they're going to get, then why hasn't it?
So it's typically an advantage.
Maybe they haven't informed the Mariners of who they want, but they're like, this is the guy.
So we see it a lot of times during the season where a team will send for cash or player to be named or whatever, and it's an advantage for the team that's acquiring that player. And the reason why is because they're really young players. They're not players on the 40-man, right? It's not like you're going to get, you know, Jared Kelenick's not the player to be named.
Or whatever.
So Kelenic, yeah. So what this is an opportunity for the Reds to see these players develop more before they select. So when you're talking about 18, 19-year-olds, you know, you want to get as much on them as you can. So in reality, it's a good thing for the Reds. If there's a pool of 5 players, I mean, it's the same thing as anything. If I said beginning of the year, pick the Bengals MVP, or I could tell you in the middle of the year, you get to pick it, you know, the more information you have, the better you feel about your selection. That's all it really is.
The more you know.
Right. And I mean, obviously there's a time limit on when you need to make this pick, but that's not public to us at least.
And just so others know, a couple names that I saw that could be floated: Edwin Arroyo, who I don't think they should give up on, or not give up on, but trade. He's like their top. He's number 10 prospect, shortstop, 18 years old. They just got him. Another name that was floated around was Luis Boulevard. They just got him, 28th prospect, 18-year-old outfielder. Like these super young, raw, projectable players for the future. It's kind of
when we're talking about the Mariners minor leagues, their prospect rankings, they're pretty loaded there. Yeah,
so they're 7th.
If you're looking at like if you're looking at a guy that's maybe their 12th, like the first guy you mentioned there, that's still a pretty decent ranking in the Mariners organization as opposed to.
If they were to get Perez, I would imagine he would slot above, and this is just me, and I'm not prospect ranking guy or anything, but I mean, I think he's above like an Austin Hendrick or right there around. Maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but I could ask Arm that and see what he had to say about that. Maybe I'm very wrong, but
I don't think you're ever wrong. But
oh my God, I could go back to old podcasts and show you plenty of times.
Now you're right about Derek Dietrich, and that's all we care about.
So here's my question that I have for you. That we, I know you mentioned this. You tweeted this out earlier today, and I sent it to you, and I was like, "Hey, this is on the list." Do you think the MLB sees what the Reds are doing here and pulls them from the Field of Dreams game and replaces them with, you know, a team that is, you know, maybe a little more attractive in a game like that?
You did do this today.
A little background about that. Jeff did a very, very good and very professional thing and sent me an extremely outlined, detailed rundown of the show, which I appreciate. I will say I don't think I received anything quite that detailed before Jeff came on the show. So in the previous years, now Ed or Aaron did send me from time to time a few questions, especially in the beginning when I first started. I will say
that was Aaron's job.
I will
told
say that
Jeff
this
said,
thing is new.
Have you all read that? And I said, yeah, of course. And for whatever reason, I decided to lie to Jeff. I did not read his rundown because I plan on doing that tonight at 8:45. And I sent out the tweet because I saw on Twitter, somebody on my other Twitter, my burner, maybe it's not actually a burner, but I saw a Field of Dreams thing and I was like, holy shit. Oh my God. What if they try to bump the Reds?
They
and
should.
I tweeted it, and Jeff's like, yeah, I had that on the rundown. So I had to confess and tell him I'm a liar and a fraud.
They should bump him from the Field of Dreams game. The Castellinis do not deserve that game with
So
this
the funny
team.
thing about that is,
Do the
quick
fans
question.
deserve it?
No. What fans?
Clay.
You've ran them all off.
Okay, stop. Clay, you're in Kentucky, right? So not too far from Nashville. You ever heard of the Nashville Dollies?
Can we actually talk about the Reds still? What are you doing?
This is about the Field of Dreams game.
first off, Ed, I'm like 3.5 hours from Nashville.
That's not true. I'm 2
I mean,
hours
it's
from
not-
Nashville. I'm 4 hours.
No, you're
This
not.
is their
2
field.
hours?
Have you ever driven to Nashville?
This is their field.
What are we doing?
No, okay. Well, I thought you guys would be interested in like a Field of Dreams scenario. All right, it's fine. Keep talking. I'm just
Okay.
gonna sit over here.
I don't think the
Here's
Reds should
what I have
have
to
a
say
Field
about
of
the Field
Dreams
of Dreams
scenario.
thing. Everyone, so I tweeted that out. 51 people decided to tell me that the Reds don't deserve it.
Agreed.
I didn't respond to any of it really because in reality it just wouldn't be worth the time. But okay, both of these teams were selected last year. Neither one of them made the playoffs. So when they were selected, it wasn't like there was some outstanding team or anything. Like
Well, I mean, they were a decent team
what's
last
changed
year.
that much?
Well, we went from 87 wins
I know,
to
but it wasn't
57
like they
wins.
selected two
57
the
wins.
teams that
Clay.
played last year were the Yankees and the White Sox, right? Like two good teams. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like they decided, okay, we're gonna have these heavy hitters. Like it was the Reds and the Cubs, two teams that were middle of the pack in the NL Central. Like it
We
wasn't
lost
like
30
when they
WAR.
selected them, they're incredible.
For Nick Kirby, we lost at least 30 WAR. 30.
30 wins. Well,
What are you talking
I don't know. I
30.
just it just
I
kind
didn't
of like
expect you to understand that.
it jumped
it's
into
advanced
my
metrics.
mind a little bit that maybe the MLB kind of uses that as another one of their, I don't know, anti-tanking things. Like if we give you this game, like you can't just go out and sell your whole team and make it a product. I mean, they're gonna get people are gonna watch that game regardless. So I guess it doesn't matter, like just because of what it is. Like it's not like they're trying to sell out a huge number of tickets. There's only like 10,000 seats there or something, if that. Like there's not a lot of seats there, so
don't
it's
know
not
if
like they're not trying to pack a full stadium. It's a one-off thing. It's gonna sell out because most of I think most of those tickets are available to Iowa residents only anyway, and then the rest of them are probably Super Bowl ticket.
Apparently, we
price
should get it in
seats.
2024, Jeff.
So-
Apparently, we should get it in 2024. Here's
mean,
the biggest problem. Here's the biggest problem I have with all of this that's happened this week is simply the fact that it just doesn't make sense to me that we're prepping for 2024 when, again, we had a roster that if you add a piece or two, we can get there. And what does winning do? Winning sells merchandise. Winning sells tickets. Tickets sell concessions. Tickets sell more merchandise. Look at what the Bengals have done right on the other side of the road, right down the road, to where they can't even get anything in their pro shop right now. Still, I don't understand the mindset if you're business savvy and you're hemorrhaging money as, again, a team that averages somewhere between 14 and 18 on revenue in the entirety of baseball. You're somewhere between 14 and 18 every year. So how are you losing this much money when no one else is? It doesn't make sense. Your contracts aren't crazy.
Scared money don't make money, right, Aaron?
These are questions. I mean, I know a lot of people think it's just the Reds. Like, no matter what sports you follow, you're going to find these issues across every sport. And to be honest with you, you are 100% right. Like, people should be asking these questions.
Yeah.
And I think it's bullshit that the Reds decided to enter into this rebuild thing. And the main reason why on Twitter and the way I approach it is more of a, okay, I'm just going to look for the next thing, is simply because there's nothing I can do about it, right? So I'm just trying to.
Well,
my whole thing is, okay, I'll just try to move on to when I'm just going to follow it for what it is, because,
I know you can only control your control.
What are we going to do?
I get it.
Everyone's asking the right questions.
But we're not
right?
stupid fans anymore. Like, it's 2022. We have access to all of the information now. No team is finishing in the red. 47 million in the red. Get out of here. Come on, man. Don't even come at me with that. It doesn't make sense. And again, as a business owner, sometimes you have to lose money to make money if you're actually losing money, which I'm still not buying. So none of this makes sense. Like, as fans, we're out here trying to support a team, trying to support a team that is, again, as Jeff said earlier, a very storied, just rich in history team. And we're getting shit on year after year after year by this particular ownership. Say what you will about Marge Schott, and there's a lot you can say about Marge Schott. Do not get it twisted. But she at least tried to field a winning team, regardless of everything else that she supported. But you know what I mean? Like,
how about Steve Cohen for the Mets? Like, we just need. And I know there's a lot of people that hate that guy, but I mean, that dude says, I'm so freaking rich and I want to watch the Mets win. I'm just gonna buy it. What if we had 30 of those?
Well, I hear again, if you're losing 47 million, you have a bad business, correct? Sure. I'm going with it. You have a bad business, but you spent 270 million to get in this business. You can sell it right now, I believe, in that same Forbes article that said you lost 47 million. Again, bullshit. That's valuing the Reds at somewhere around, I believe, $2 billion. So sell the team and get your $2 billion, be out, all the way out, and get somebody in here who wants to actually spend the money to put a winning product on the field, so we don't have to go through this every 7 out of 10 years. It doesn't make sense.
This is why we should be supporting all of Nick Lachey's new TV shows on Netflix, so that he can keep getting paid and buy this team.
Okay, that's not going to happen. Like, I think the other issue though with selling professional teams right now is the fact that they're valued what they're valued at, and to get a group together that's going to pay that, and then has the additional funds to run the team and do what we would like, which is, be a Dodgers team that can spend money and not worry about it. Yeah, I don't think that group of people is there.
Look, I don't ever expect us to have an LA type of ownership ever. I'm being very realistic about it.
I think the only person that we can bring in here that would honestly, like, the only person that I see pop up on Twitter a lot that people are like, oh God, just let him buy the team, is a guy like Mark Cuban. Like, does he really want to buy the Reds?
There's plenty of people. And here's the thing, Jeff, is even the Castellinis are not just a one-person show. It's an ownership group. You have a group that pulled in their money, but they pulled in at $270 million. Now, again, the upper 1%ers have made a lot of money during this particular, what's been going on with the pandemic. The upper echelon has made a ton of money right now. Don't get it twisted. There's
Exxon.
money. There's
Just
money
to
out
give
there.
everyone an idea of how much money it takes to own a team. It's tough to wrap your mind around, honestly. But I just looked up the first owner that came to mind in professional sports for me was Arthur Blank, who owns the Falcons. And his money is from
Arthur
Home
Blank
Depot, is how he became rich. And his net worth is $7.2 billion. You are a different type of rich that we can't hardly fathom if you want to own a team.
Yeah,
if you
I just
want
looked
to
at
do
Castellini's net worth, and it's $400 million. So compare those two.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
it's like Evan just said it over here.
Peyton Manning, who's on every commercial, was MVP, Super Bowl winner, does not have enough to buy a team and would have to have several partners because he's looking to buy a team.
Derek Jeter couldn't do it.
Like it's
Alex
a stupid amount of money.
Alex Rodriguez and J-Lo, when they were trying to do it together, were minority owners.
So when you say sell the team, not you personally, but when people say sell the team, there has to be a buyer, and there will be a buyer if somebody wants to.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people probably, I mean, if they want to buy a franchise, there's probably
Clay, if an
better
NFL
franchises to buy than the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, and if an NFL franchise went up for sale right now, you'd have a line around the block of people ready to buy an NFL franchise. That's my point, though.
I know nothing about soccer, but I think Arsenal's up for sale, and like all these owners of other professional sports teams are like trying to buy it. Like that's the thing that's like my trigger kicked in. It's like, okay, in general, like a lot of these sports owners, they're making money no matter what the sport is, the owners, right? If Arsenal goes up for sale right after a pandemic and you have a bunch of sports owners trying to buy it, like, oh, well, if your current team's losing money, like they claim, then how are you going to buy Arsenal? Which do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't believe this whole, like, it's this huge sunk cost thing.
I believe that if Bob Castellini cannot afford to own the Reds and do what is right by the franchise, by baseball standards, and rather than be the West Side Pirates, which is what we're quickly becoming, get out.
I mean, we've said that we've beat that drum before, that if you're an owner of a team and your goal is not to win every year and do everything you can to win every year, like, move on. But the goal of owners is just to make money. Like, that's their, like, the goal of these, most of them, outside of, like, you know, some of these guys who are beyond stupid rich. It's like this, just like this little, like, game that they can play. Like,
these people are not fans most times. They don't. They're not a Reds. A Reds fan did not buy the Cincinnati Reds. That's not how it works.
That's what
So
happened in
they
this
don't think like
situation.
a fan. They don't care about if they're making money. Why invest more into it? Okay, maybe to make more money, right? But I mean, that's no guarantee. A lot of these people are just business people, lawyers, you know, whatever they may be, and
But
they don't
Castellini is a
necessarily
Reds
care
fan.
about.
I just never thought that I'd see the day that the Bengals ownership was more competent and more willing to put a winning product on the field than the Reds ownership.
Maybe they're not, though. I'm just joking. I just wanted to see if I can get Ed to. I don't know. I just thought I could get Ed to kind of go on a rant there.
We haven't signed Gronk yet, so
I mean,
no. But
yeah,
am I wrong? Castellini, when he said he was a Reds fan, that's why he bought the team. Am I right?
Evidence is contrary to that at this point in
Well,
time.
now,
Listen,
yeah.
people, all because they say something doesn't mean shit. Honestly, I mean, what do you expect it to say?
Paragraph number 2.
I'm not a
We're
Reds fan.
longtime
I don't care
baseball
about the
fans
Reds.
Baseball fans, not Reds fans.
and have grown up with the
What
Reds
is
and have
this?
fond memories at the ballpark.
We all
this is
grew up,
this is the letter that they released when they bought the
purchased
team.
the Reds.
This is what everybody always references back to, where he said, "We will bring championship baseball to Cincinnati."
I'm not reading all
Like,
that.
right?
Don't read it all.
If you just look at the bold
TL
lines at the
TLDR.
we will
I'm
not
happy for
rest
you.
until
We're sorry that happened.
the final one is, "We will not rest until you are happy."
They're
Like,
tired as hell, man. They're tired as hell right
they're
now.
so tired. They
Maybe
just
that
want to.
explains some moves that they've made, or they're just sleep deprived.
Who knows that? And they've got the worst PR GM of all time in Nick Kroll. I mean,
I know that we like to compare the Bengals to the Reds, especially because the Bengals were bad 2 years ago, whatever. And that, I think it's such, and I heard a lot of that narrative this offseason. And maybe it was just people struggling for, articles and whatnot during the
recency
lockout.
bias too. Of like,
I just think it's literally impossible to compare those two sports. I mean, you're talking about salary cap sport. You're talking about players
A sport that
entering
cares
near
about
their
parity.
prime.
But you're also talking about a sport with football where, so the draft is coming up, and you can draft a guy like a Joe Burrow, right? That can come in and immediately you have your star player that can turn the franchise. I mean, we talk about it on the show all the time, the Joe Burrow effect. Like, look at these guys that want to come play in Cincinnati now. They
bigger than the Mike Trout effect.
But you can't go draft Joe Burrow this year for the Reds and expect him to be ready. I mean, it's very few and far between where you draft a player who immediately has an impact on your Major League Baseball team.
That's exactly my main thing is in the NFL, you're drafted close to your prime. And for running backs, more or less your prime. In the NFL, it is such a QB dominated sport. You cannot dominate with one player in baseball.
Like I said,
in football, you have a really good QB. When you get a franchise QB in football, you are in legit playoff contention until that player either leaves or begins to decline.
Clay,
one player. You
Trout
don't have that in baseball. I mean, look at the Rangers. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, they got some legit stars they brought in this year, and they're still not projected to be all that great because it's such a more difficult team building concept, I guess. You cannot win with – what I'm saying is your team's not going to improve by 50% by getting one player the way that it can in football.
Mike Trout is the best player of our generation. And how many times have the Angels made the playoffs?
Pretty disgusting for you to overlook Christian Cologne like that, but
I mean that just goes to build the same
out of your house.
That just goes to build the same point that we're making though. It's just like you can't baseball without endless funds to pay a bunch of guys to change your team, a bunch of guys. You can't do it in 1 year or 2 years, like unless you have the money to bring it. Like you're just not going to go into the draft. Like we're talking about guys like Chase Petty, who were the number one pick for the Twins, and he doesn't even have an ETA to the MLB for still another 4 years.
Sell the team, Bob.
And you don't know, he may not pan out. The number of players that are drafted in Major League Baseball that don't pan out is astronomical because they draft so many players.
I did a research project on this is like about a month ago on top 100 list, right? Because everyone during trade season, what do? You look at top 100, say, oh, we want to trade with the A's. Here's guy number 87. Let's go get him. And I studied the past 8 years, and the amount of players that have a career 10 WAR, okay? A average MLB shortstop has about a 2 WAR in a season. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. There's about 20% that have more than a 10 career WAR. I mean, you're talking about 25% that never have even a 1 WAR. So you're really talking about it's just the draft is so crazy. The prospect list up and down, it's absurd. So I know that you all have to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and re-signing Hill and the tight end league.
Spoiler alert.
And let's see what else I can ruin. Joe Burrow's new injury no one knows about but me. Well, before I go out, I do want to say I shit on the Bengals a lot, especially to you all.
To us specifically in our group chat, yes.
Correct. And I love watching that team in the playoffs. I mean, that was special. It really was. That team was ahead of its, curve or whatever you want to call it.
2 years ahead of time. Yeah.
Ahead of schedule. Close win. I mean, that team was so exciting to watch. I'm glad that the city of Cincinnati got the Bearcats and Bengals playing good football this year. That was awesome.
Clay, did we just become best friends?
No. However,
Clay's my best friend.
all of this positive movement with the Bengals and the Bearcats football teams going on, and for whatever reason, Ed can't stop talking about Kenyon Martin from 2001. I mean, we have to find a way to get this guy out of the past, man. It's been 21 years. Give up on Kenyon Martin. He's gone.
Oh, he's gonna go get his collection. It's gonna take him an hour and a half to get all the stuff down that he's got.
But from a non-Bengals fan, that team could be scary. They're adding in free agency. Got a couple offensive linemen. What are they going to do at tight end? I mean, what are they going to do at tight end? The tight end draft sucks. And for those who don't know, I'm a big NFL draft guy, like big time. So
who do you have? Who do you have before we let you go? Who do you have the Bengals taking? Is it going to be offense or defense?
Okay. Let me take a step back. I know and listen to a bunch of podcasts and read about a bunch of prospects. I don't do individual. I don't know the Bengals team needs.
You're not mocking or anything.
No, but I do the mock draft on the draft networks.
To do.
Yeah. Those of you who use the PFF mock draft, that's bad. Go to the draftnetwork.com and use that. If you get a premium subscription, you can trade.
You can trade on PFF.
Well, the PFF also has like the worst rankings. They have Travis Jones going in the third round. I guarantee Travis Jones, defensive tackle, UConn, will go easily in the top 50 picks. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's in the first round.
UConn still has a football team?
Yes. I don't feel like they actually update their rankings nearly enough on PFF, to your point.
And I'm not an anti-PFF guy. I listen to their like show podcast thing on YouTube constantly.
We had Austin Gale on last week on the BCJ podcast. So.
Can I quickly ask, and I promise I'll leave after this, who do you all think they should get in the first round?
Apparently a tight end now.
There's no tight end in this draft that's going in the first round.
No,
this tight end.
You don't take a tight end in the first round. There's not a tight end in this draft.
I haven't had time to work on that.
Yeah.
What position? What position? Give me something.
I would go the way that I've seen my mock drafts go when I've done them. I'm looking defense actually in the first round if they stay at 31, and I'm going either interior line or an edge rusher or a cornerback. Not necessarily in that order. Probably cornerback first. I think that's where the draft is deepest at that particular spot, and I think they'll already have the offensive line shored up at that point in time.
I was going to say that my selection is going to be based off of obviously tomorrow free agency like full on opens up for people to sign. So they could potentially shore up, obviously the tight end situation. They'll probably shore that up. I would assume probably through free agency. And then I think that they've got to go for a cornerback. Like, you got to remember, like, Joseph Asai's coming back, so like he's going to fill in another like edge spot. They lost, I guess, Ogunjobi's. Did he have? I guess he hasn't officially signed with, but I guess it sounds like he's going to go to the Bears. So like,
12 million. We weren't paying 12 million for him.
How are the Bengals looking in the slot?
Slot's taken care of. Slot's Mike Hilton still. Okay.
Roger McCreary from Auburn. Short arms, may have to move in to kind of the slot role, in a nickel package. However, that man, before every game, eats a can of beans with 4 packs of sugar. I want that guy on my football team. I just want that guy in my locker room.
There's a corner that I've seen at 31. I've seen him in more mocks than not, from Florida. I can't recall his name.
Elam.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there at 31, and I think that'd be a fantastic pick.
Yeah, he tested well at the combine too.
They should just trade up and get Sauce.
Okay,
dude, Sauce to the Vikings. If not before then,
he's gonna end up in New York. Giants. Whether it's with the Giants or the Jets, I think it's gonna be the Giants.
Giants. I think the Giants. Trevor Penning from Iowa or from Northern Iowa, big nasty tackle.
I did see him mocked there, but I think they have 2 picks.
They do.
They have like 5 and 7.
Yeah.
All right, before I go, Malik Willis, number 2 overall to the Detroit Lions, and they will regret that pick. But
I think I've seen Detroit trading up to 32, or do they have 32 from the Rams?
they have 32.
I've seen them actually waiting to take their quarterback at 32, and they take Des Ridder in a lot of mock-ups because that's honestly about the best place you could take a quarterback. I think Malik Willis is too unproven, and if you take Des at 32, A, you're spending an early pick on something far better than a quarterback. B, you still have Jared Goff there. C, you also get the 5th year with a 32nd pick. So,
Yeah, you want to keep that 5th-year option for the quarterback.
but apparently
Sure.
Des is shooting up people's boards. I read that today somewhere. So we'll see.
The thing about Dez, and this is not me hating on him, he went to the same high school as me. I mean, I'm a big fan.
That's very cool. I didn't know that.
What you do with quarterback, and how often do we see this, is a lot of times you want to project out traits, right? I think Ridder is going to be maybe the best pro of this, or have the longest pro career. He may not have the highest greats. He may not be able to do what Malik Willis can do in terms of just the arm strength and his mobility, but he can do so much at such a consistent level that I think he very well could be a starter for 10 years in the NFL. I don't see any reason why he can't. The dude's super smart. I think teams are really, really going to like him. I just think it's such a weak quarterback class. But, last year we saw Trey Lance go 3 overall, and a lot of people had second-round grades on him when they do their evaluation. So that second-round grade in terms of talent, but as we know, the quarterback position is valued so high, they always go before their
ranking.
That's
And everybody, that was Clay Snowden from JustFootball.com. I don't know if you know him.
Who the hell do I think I am? I'm just sitting here like bullshitting about the draft as if I know stuff.
I told you we miss you, Clay. We miss you.
I'm just like regurgitating a bunch of. I watch a bunch of film study, not like me breaking it down, like other people breaking it down, because I don't know nearly enough. And now who am I, draft guy? I mean, fuck.
Draft guy, Snow Clayton.
I do want to point out the chat through in the chat. The tight end is very deep. No elite guys, but a ton that can produce at a Uzama level right away. That said, I think that's maybe why Josh Wiley stayed.
So the tight end group is weird. The tight end group is deep. Isaiah Likely is a guy I like a lot from Coastal Carolina, but I don't see any of these guys as difference makers.
The kid from Virginia is going in like on my mock in like the 5th round.
Yeah, I mean, you could. So there's this guy from Maryland who I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I've watched him a lot being a Michigan State fan. And he's just crazy athletic. He has some ridiculous name, but I like him. He's going late rounds. Dulcich from UCLA,
the Ohio State kid, 3rd round.
Jake Ferguson. Yeah, I mean, there's some solid players, but there's just not a game changer at tight end in this group.
I don't think the Bengals need a game changer at tight end, if I'm being honest. They just need somebody who can catch the ball better than Drew Sample.
Bring back Tyler Eifert.
He's come on, man, get out of here. Bye, Clay. Bye, Clay.
Hey,
bye,
thanks,
Clay.
It was a lot of fun.
Clay, look what I got.
Living in the past, Clay. He's living in the past.
All right, Ed. I'll let you all get to wrapping this up so you can go watch your VHS of Kenyon Martin highlights. Jason Maxiel or Maxwell or whatever his name is going to be next.
It's Maxiel.
That was Clay Snowden joining us from Just Baseball. We were the first to ever have him, Nick Kirby. You will never replace us on that. And he is our best friend. We love you so much.
What? Okay, just quickly, I have to show you all this. These are the bottles I got you all last year that you still have not picked up. I've yet to be able to show you all.
I will be in. I'll be in Louisville, in April.
Okay. I've had these since September, so I can wait till April. But I just wanted to show you all because I've not been able to show you the actual bottles. I will wipe the dust off of them beforehand.
You sent us pictures.
I love the new setup, Butter.
I think that we need to figure out when you actually get to Cincinnati to bring them and present them to all of us and just have a night. But
I've texted you all like 4 different times. I'm coming to Cincinnati in 30 minutes.
There was a pandemic. We'll figure it out.
Clay's like, I'm driving up 75. I'm crossing the river.
I'm going to Cincinnati.
He's like, I'm actually on the bridge crossing over into Cincinnati right now.
He's like, I'm not stopping in Cincinnati. I'm on my way through. You think you can meet me on the side of the highway? Like, I'll
meet me on the
your
side
bottle.
of 71.
I left the bottles behind the McDonald's dumpster.
They're gone.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Clay Snowden. Again, thank you very much for joining us to talk all things CBA, Reds, in shambles, and everything else in between. We appreciate you, sir.
All right, DM me for draft info.
Clay Snowden with justfootball.com.
There's nothing else to talk about.
Oh, man, I miss that guy.
I love him. All right, so the Bengals, they did make some moves. Those moves included 2 offensive linemen that have yet to be actually ink on paper.
Hopefully tomorrow that's official.
We got Alex Kappa from Tampa Bay,
Who we stole away from one Tom Brady, who's back in the league.
45 years old. What are we doing here?
He's 789 years old and he's back in the league. The memes on that are hilarious. Like he was at home for 2 months with his wife and kids and was like, nah, never mind. I want a 300-pound lineman to come hit me.
This ain't for me.
It's amazing just how he still looks younger than all 3 of us.
It's crazy. I also think it's funny, and this is a totally stolen take, but everybody's making it with. He's like, I've got unfinished business, and they're like, what unfinished business do you have? Like, you've got Super Bowls, you've got records, you've got records.
You've literally done it all.
Well, how about the guy
final
who just bought
football sold for $500,000 and now it's worth $50,000? Like,
the only thing that he hasn't done is celebrate a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay sober.
True.
Because he was very drunk. The fact that they were throwing
the trophy,
Lombardi trophy from boat to boat, I'm still just.
Well, I hope he doesn't get a chance to celebrate a Super
Bowl
there.
Again. Get out of here, man! You're 45. Come on.
I think he was.
Come on, man.
He got a little jealous of the Gronk Burrow bromance that was
I think so.
starting, and is it also kind of strange to you guys that and I know we're talking about tight ends, but like, and this is a take that Ed doesn't like, but like, is it kind of strange that like there hasn't been an announcement there yet, or is it because they're in the middle of restructuring a lot of things to get around whatever the NFL the mythical NFL salary cap to make sure that it works out? Like,
here's what's gonna happen, Jeff.
Do you think he goes to the Bills? Like what?
No. He's gonna end up a Buccaneer, and it's gonna be a team friendly deal.
That's what I was told.
What's going to happen is he's going to end up with a substantial investment from one Tom Brady into whatever company it is that he has right now.
Oh, he owns a company with his brother.
I believe it's like Ice Shaker or something like that.
It was on Shark Tank, Mr. Mark.
But that's what's going to happen. The same way that Tom Brady was always taking team-friendly deals that keep getting thrown out there, by the way, from the Patriots, while the Patriots were also Robert Kraft was investing money into Tom Brady's company. That's what's not talked about as he's taking team-friendly deals. Get out of here. He wasn't getting paid. He was taking team-friendly deals. Joe Burrow should do the same. Joe Burrow should get paid.
No, absolutely.
Unless he's got a company that Mike Brown's going to invest in, fat chance.
But talking about Kappa, they said that, Tom Brady, when he was coming back, like obviously he called Ryan Jensen first, which took him out from underneath that was a done deal apparently. Right. And he calls him up like, hey, I'm coming back. Like, can you please come back? And Jensen was like, all right. And then apparently, I guess his next call was to Kappa, and Kappa was like, I think I'm gonna head up to Cincinnati and play with Joe Burrow.
So real quick, the Gronk brothers own a Gronk Nation, which own a fitness club fitness equipment, ice shaker, an official Gronk party bus, and sports chew.
They rented their house out. They rented Gronk's house out to party with Gronk for the Super Bowl. Gronk didn't show up.
Happens.
So anyway, like obviously that's likely a pipe dream. He's probably going back to it. He is old. Like he, as far as like
he was injured half the year last year.
Like and people want to say like, well, like look at the numbers he put up versus what Uzama put up, and it's like, but he's Brady's guy, right? So he got like a lot more. Like you got to look like here. You've got other guys that need to eat for lack of a better word, right?
He just needs to draw off the double team.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean we had some red zone deficiencies, so like
he's also a hell of a blocker,
and he's a great blocker. So like, I mean if they can get it and it doesn't cost him an arm and a leg, and he decides that he wants to leave Brady, who's coming back, like I don't see that happening. But if he decides that that's what he wants to do, then I would be happy to take him as a Cincinnati Bengal. And it's a little easier to say that now that we know that CJ is headed up to put on the green and white and play for the Jets and have Mike White throw him passes.
Well, we also signed offensive lineman who can shift between guard and center. He's been both. He snapped to Tom Brady an awful lot in his career. Is it Tim Karras? Is that first name Tim? I know it's Karras.
It's Karras is his last name. And that could develop very well with the recent release of the Browns center, who had the number 2 pass blocking ranking in the league.
And now all of a sudden your entire interior line is different.
And you could turn it over, and like missing out on Jensen doesn't hurt as much as like really at all.
You're talking about JC, is it Treader?
Yeah. He's the NFLPA president, but yeah, he gets, I guess he was a victim of the salary cap or whatever the Browns are doing up there.
Ted Karras, another 3-letter T name.
So, you bring him in if you can get it's Freder, right? The guy from the Browns.
I think it's Treader.
Treader.
With a T. Treader. Tretter. JC Treader.
So if you bring him in, obviously like that's been one of those things where it happened today. People are like, oh yeah, the Bengals should target him, bring him in. Like,
well, we got to imagine Trey Waynes and the
Hopkins
and Trey Hopkins both get cut tomorrow, I would think.
Likely. And a lot of this is going to kind of work itself out over the next couple days. And then obviously once free agency, because I feel like it's going to be a flurry, obviously tomorrow. And then, once things kind of settle down or whatever, then we can look forward to what the Bengals need to address when the draft rolls around. But obviously, there is potential that what the Bengals do in free agency in the next couple of days, they can look at possibly trading out of that 31 spot and maybe, to move back, maybe use it to trade for a piece from somewhere.
You may not have to if Lyle Collins.
And then you still have Collins from down in Dallas, like
who is an LSU guy, might I add.
Yeah, so you got him, and although you never know what those Dallas guys are going to do, because that was it Randy Gregory was like the Cowboys tweeted out like, he's back, he's coming back, and then the Broncos were like, nah, he's coming here. So,
who knows?
You never know. I mean, free agency is going to be wild, and it starts tomorrow.
I guess like rumors are that Dallas is going to would right now take a low draft pick just to get Collins out, which is crazy. But obviously with our offensive lineman coach and Lyle Collins, he was the one who drafted him Collins was an undrafted free agent. Took a chance on him, and he ended up being a guy. But you could potentially save a bunch of money if you wait for him to get cut instead of trading for his current contract. So we'll see what happens with Lyle Collins. He seems to be a glass eater. So the Bengals re-signed BJ Hill. If you don't remember who BJ Hill is, he had some big plays in the playoffs. He was the guy who notably was traded for Billy Price. Ended up being good enough for a 3-year, $30 million deal. That's a big deal for a guy who nobody knew who he was when he got to Cincinnati. By the time the Super Bowl was around, everybody knew who he was.
He's been a dude.
I think that's a great signing. I think you had to keep either BJ Hill or Larry Ogunjobi. And they went with the guy who was not injured. They went with the guy who was I think he's trending up, whereas Ogunjobi may be trending down, and cheaper, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah.
Ogunjobi had a great season. That's not a knock on Ogunjobi, but injuries are not to be ignored.
So, I mean, obviously a lot more of this. I mean, and we could talk about CJ leaving, you know, what was him leaving for that.
$8 million's a lot for a tight end, man.
Yeah. I mean, he chased the money there. Obviously, are the Jets going to turn things around soon enough to, get him a chance to get back to the Super Bowl?
They've made some big moves in free agency already.
And they may. I mean,
offensive line especially.
Let's face it, the Bengals weren't, looked at as a team that was going to make it to the Super Bowl. Like we can't look at everything and say like, oh yeah, the Bengals have been dominant forever. Why are these?
No.
So, and yeah, he's a huge locker room guy.
Yes.
A great guy like that on the field. And this isn't a knock on him, but he's replaceable on the field. Mm-hmm. So, is he replaceable? The energy he brings in the locker room, likely not. Outside, I mean, like some other guys can pick it up, but he's a special guy. We love him here in Cincinnati, and I think it would be unfair to say that anybody wouldn't wish him well in the rest of his career.
Agreed.
Right? Like,
sure.
We love it. Like the scene of him at the pep rally ripping the brace off and chucking it in the air will live on in Cincinnati Bengals lore forever, and it was amazing. And so, like, he's in New York now. As long as they're not playing us and it doesn't affect us, I'll still root for him. Are you talking about my daughter's hand that's popping up in the back?
You got a visitor.
Yeah, she's a nut.
It's kind of creepy.
So it is what it is. Like, I'm happy for him. Everybody said it all over Twitter. Like he certainly has a future in, being a presenter probably on a national NFL show somewhere.
He's got a future with a lady, and
maybe that rumor is true. Maybe.
I mean, I'm just saying. Good Morning Football.
Do you think she's still going to be a fan of the Bengals next year?
I think so. The Bengals treated her like a princess. I think she'd be foolish to not be a fan of the Bengals next year.
I mean, she always has. I mean, we're talking about Kay Adams, and she's got great takes. Like, I mean, she's somebody that you can look at that has takes pretty objective view of the National Football League and what's going on. So, whatever.
All right. Well,
good for
wrapping up here. A couple things with the Bearcats, and we'll get you out of here. We're running a little late tonight. Clay ran a little late tonight. Ed's got his 90-second book review.
No.
So, all right.
Just gone.
The tournament is back. Cincinnati has a tournament team. The
basketball tournament.
TBT. The basketball tournament. I saw this mock-up here, Ed, and I saw another mock-up somewhere else that only had one T, the way it should be.
Yes, I believe somebody called him out on this and said, why are there two T's? And I believe he contacted TBT and got that got that fixed. Unfortunately, I made this graphic during lunch before he did that. So
He probably said 100%.
he
Well, I mean, he even spells it up in the tweet with one T. So
100%.
But that's pretty cool, and it would be neat if they sold
Well,
those
he did.
jerseys. Do they do that? Does TBT?
Yeah.
Do they sell like?
So they don't usually sell the jerseys, but they will sell hoodies.
Shorts.
They sold two extra jerseys and 2 extra pairs of shorts for the Bearcat GM because I guess 2 players didn't show up or something like that. But normally it's just the hoodies.
They also put out a projected. Kevin Johnson also put out a projected starting rotation. Troy Calpain, Jacob Evans, Trayvon Scott, Octavius Ellis, Shaq Thomas, Jaron Cumberland, Isaiah Miller from UNCG, who is currently in the NBA G League or was. I'm not really sure how those rules work out. James Dickey, also from UNCG and Israel, apparently. I'm not familiar with James Dickey at all. That said, that's a huge upgrade on the last team that was put out with TBT.
That looks like a solid team, and they're also They're also trying to reach out to Sean Kilpatrick and Justin Jackson.
Well, Kevin, let's be honest. Kevin Johnson apparently doesn't know how Twitter works because he put out wanting to know what people thought about potential coaches, but didn't know that you could actually make a poll. So maybe he can figure that out sometime between now and, I don't know, the weekend, and figure out how to put a poll up for who you want him to reach out to be the coach, whether it was.
I think there's a coach.
I think he had like Kenyon Martin on there. There was maybe
We
Steve
got a couple
Logan.
guys that are in the. I don't think Steve Logan was on there, but there's a couple. I mean, that's what I'm saying is Steve Logan's here in town. I think he would do it, and I wouldn't mind seeing DeMar. DeMar could probably coach the team.
DeMar's probably not allowed. It may be
solid point. Solid point.
NCAA infraction.
Solid
I'm
point.
not sure how that goes, but I don't recall anybody who had collegiate association there outside
I think
of
West Virginia's team had the assistant coach last year.
I know Evan Turner was like a coach, but when he was still in the league, but I think he was only allowed to be a coach. But I don't know that you can actually do an NCAA coach.
Right.
Yeah, could be violations there.
And this could be exciting because this is supposed to be played at the Centos Center.
And NCAA coaches usually have a lot going on in the offseason anyway.
Solid point as well.
Like, I would like our coaches, and then we can move into wrapping up the Bearcats season. I would like our coaches to be doing what they didn't get a chance to do last year, which is recruit.
Well, DeMar can't technically be involved in recruiting.
Well, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying.
Not firsthand involved. I mean, he can still be doing research, watching tape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And maybe we can push off our actual thoughts on the end of the basketball season to next week as we are.
No, let's knock it out real quick because I don't want to necessarily go back to this.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to take long.
No.
UC came in hard down the stretch when they finally had a break. When they finally had some time to practice, they came in hard in the tournament. They played 12 games in 25 days in February, and that is more than all but one school, I believe, which was tied with Cincinnati. Cincinnati got hosed, if we're being honest, as far as rescheduling went. They had 2 games rescheduled against not one but 2 top teams in this conference, in Memphis and in Houston. And to go where you can't practice in between games because NCAA rules, to where you're literally just doing a run through and playing another game. How do you instill any type of adjustment?
Yeah.
We can take the graphic down now, Ed.
Oh, that's a good solid point. Sorry, the Indiana game's on.
Good to see you're invested here.
I am invested. I'm listening.
So we've talked about that they didn't have a lot of break, and I guess my question to you guys is, do you feel that the season ended on like an upswing? Because a lot of people said, during most of the season, a lot of people were saying like, hey, this season is they're regressing. Like, I don't see any improvement anywhere. I don't see anything to be positive about what is happening with UC basketball. Saw it a lot.
They won a game against ECU, and I think that was very important.
Yes.
Going into the offseason.
I thought that was important. I also thought that and we had a group chat going, during the Houston game, and I really thought they gave it all that they had there. There wasn't any kind. I mean, they flat out got beat. Houston is a better team.
Oh, Houston's a good team.
They've got the talent. Like,
that's the difference between a team that hadn't played in that tournament and a team that played the day prior,
the day before. Absolutely.
But not only that, but also was here.
The talent difference, right? No, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things going, and it's not making any kind of excuses. Like, those kids didn't go out there thinking that
they threw their haymaker.
Like,
they threw their haymaker. It landed.
It did, and they played solid defense for 3/4 of the game. Right. We're not getting a 40 ball hung on us, as our friend JT Smith likes to say. Like, the gap there closed. Like, we're not getting embarrassed and run off the court. Our coach isn't walking off the floor before the game's over. Like, these things aren't happening. Obviously, once the portal opens up and people hit the portal, and then we've got some recruits that are coming in. Like, I am a big Wes Miller fan. If you go back to last year, about this time, whenever he was announced as the coach, no, I wasn't necessarily.
No, that was way later.
Right. I said about this time. I'm just saying end of the season, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I was laying in bed after my first COVID shot.
I am not saying that it happened like in March.
It was like
May
or June.
What I am saying is, when he was installed as the coach here, he wasn't my first pick. We all had talked about that stuff.
Your timeline was just wrong.
So I'm not like, I wasn't like hanging on Wes Miller. Like, yeah, this is, what I wanted to see. I was impressed with his resume, because I didn't know who he was, for one. But once I looked into it, I was impressed with. Obviously, I was impressed with his resume and those kinds of things like that, and wanted to see what he had to do. And I thought he did a better job than I thought anybody could come in here and do with what he was given. I thought in my head, and I've said it before, that I thought 12 to 13 wins was really going to be the ceiling for this team this year, and they blew that out of the water.
Okay.
So I was happy there. I thought that they had success beyond what I had predicted in my own head. So I was happy with what they've got. I know that there were some deficiencies and some issues that happened. And that's going to, you got a team that was, we've said it before, and like 30 days put together this team, and they, scraped the bottom of the transfer portal barrel to find who was left out there that they could get, and brought some guys over from UNCG, and, were able to hold on to some of the guys that were still here.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the roster in the offseason. I don't know if either of you watched the press conference from Wes Miller this afternoon.
I saw a lot of people, and then there were a lot of people that said that, his quote about, like, I like the guys that are here. Like people expected him to come out and be like, no, like, I want everybody to leave. Like, no coach is going to say that. Like,
so it was the way he said it, though. He said that he's going to have conversations. They're going to be very honest. He said that he liked his team and doesn't want anybody to leave, and said that, oh, here he comes. This was I'm recapping the nightcap at this point, Chad.
Go ahead, Aaron. You're in the middle of a thought.
So he basically said that he kind of expects everybody to come back, and that it's going to be honest conversations. It's a two-part conversation. You first have the conversation, and then you come back around and then decide what they've told you, where they expect you to be next year, what your role would be next year, what kind of guys they want to bring in next year. Then you decide as the player whether you come back or not. It's not we're running anybody out. It's the player gets to decide.
Ed, you realize we can see your screen in the glasses, right? Like, so whatever's going on in the screen, we can see. Just giving you a heads up. Like, I don't want you to make any cancelable mistakes.
He claims he's watching Indiana. I believe he's watching porn.
Stop.
Oh,
No, that's not true.
Jesus.
I'm watching Indiana. I got Twitter on this screen and Indiana's on the big TV.
Okay. So you joined us, Chad, coming in here late at the 2:25 mark.
We'll see how dedicated people are because I'm gonna drop some heat right now.
Ooh, on
Oh.
PTP.
But
Before you drop heat, I do want to shout out, and I'm sure that nobody that listens to this has any idea about it, but the Bearcats did have someone placed at the NCAA Indoor National Championships in track, and that was Ellie Leather, placed third in the mile, and that is awesome. So we have what's
and
that?
apparently she's British, so we should
I-
we should find a way to have her on.
I don't know. I don't know anything about.
I'm telling you, Jeff.
That,
Apparently,
but, like,
she's British.
I enjoy track and field, and watching it when I
be the
saw
Jeff
she was
show.
in the race, I was like, "Hey, this is awesome!" And then she ran a great race and ended up taking third. So
Kind of a standard miler, like hung towards the back of the pack early.
yeah.
and then
And
made her
then-
move in the
Have you
middle
watched-
laps.
Did you watch the race?
No, I'm speaking out of my ass. Of course, I watched the race.
Do we have a? Well, you just said like a typical miler. Like I didn't know if you were asking me, is that what she did? And
Jeff,
was
I
like,
ran.
Wow, Chad,
I'm a
you're
runner.
doing an amazing job.
I was a runner. I had a chance to run for Marshall, and
I think we've talked about this.
instead, yes, we have decided to get into broadcasting instead of dedicating my time to waking up at 6 a.m. and running.
And running endless miles.
He
No,
was
that-
running.
I run every morning.
That's-
So yeah, so I wanted to throw that shout out because I thought it was pretty cool. Go ahead, Chad.
As I've told you before, Jeff, I ran a 10-900. I ran a sub 50 400, and I couldn't break 2 in the 800. I was right, I was always right there. 2 minutes, 2:01. I couldn't quite dip below 2 in the half mile.
That's fair.
So yeah.
It's gonna be a 3-hour pod.
So here we go. A lot of conversations have gone on in the past couple of days. I think we are solidly at 5 guys from the current roster that will return. I think there is one that I expect to enter the transfer portal at some time soon. And that leaves 4 guys left to make a decision. And that's where we're at. I can't get into names because names would give away announcements, and I'm never going to give away an announcement. If you know how things work at Bearcat Journal, there are guys we don't do it in recruiting. We're not going to do it in any other facet. So I think there's 5 guys from the roster that I feel comfortable will return. I think there's 1 that is entering the transfer portal, and there are 4 others that we wait anxiously to hear what their decisions may be.
That's fair.
That's the best I can give you.
It's good
not
information.
Not often you drop bombs here on PTP, but we do appreciate it.
Look, if they're 2.5 hours in, they deserve something.
That's right.
You deserve that.
They deserve that.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, huge win over Horizon League Cleveland State in the Centos.
Not even the best Horizon League team because Wright State was.
Wright State plays Bryant tomorrow night. I can't wait for this game. There's a kid on Bryant who apparently is cockier than any kid that's ever left Xavier, and I'm here for it.
Can't be cockier than
Greg came back for more this
he
week.
is. Oh no, the kid from Bryant is like JP McCura thinks he's loud.
worse than Jimmer.
Loud.
Maybe Jimmer
Like-
did. He created his own team.
Worse than what's the kid that tripped everybody at Duke?
Oh yeah.
I know who you're
Grayson
talking about. I
Allen.
can't think. Grayson.
Yeah.
Like this is a dude that he got a technical for swinging on the rim after doing a reverse dunk in the conference finals. Like he's aggressively loud.
Can the Bearcats get him?
Interesting.
I want that injected into my veins.
Well, I think he was also just on with Dave Portnoy this afternoon on his show.
No, that was the kid from Indiana, Miller Kopp,
Okay.
that was on with Portnoy.
That thing say I look the same is fine.
Here.
Peter Kiss is the cockiest
Peter
player in
Kiss,
college basketball and leads the
That's
nation
him.
in scoring.
That's him. Wright State's in trouble tomorrow night, Aaron.
Get out of here.
Like Diego Guevara, Peter Kiss.
Go Raiders.
Oh, you went all the way back there. What a throwback, Chad.
Wright
All
State,
right.
wrong school.
2.5 hours in. That is the end of this. Chad dropped a bomb.
It's not the end.
We had Clay. Thank you, Clay, for coming back and being our BFF.
Ed doesn't have a 60-second yet.
Oh,
right,
man. Okay, get ready. 5.
No,
4.
this is going to be a Scott Hall tribute. Has to be.
I'm sure.
Hey, you didn't eat. Did you hear how I opened the show today?
Hey yo.
I wasn't here for that.
Oh,
Sorry.
hey, yo. All right,
All right, Ed.
Kevin Owen.
Are you doing AEW or are you doing Scott Hall?
Surprise.
Okay.
Well, that's the difference between 60 seconds and 90 seconds. So you tell me.
Do you want 60 or 90 seconds, Ed?
60 seconds will be fine.
Okay, here we go. Count it down, Aaron.
And 3, 2, Ed.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
No.
Hey yo.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo.
That was it?
One of the greatest entertainers in the history of history.
The first ever ladder match against Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
There is a video on YouTube of those two watching that match together, and it's awesome.
I need to check that out.
All
I
right,
remember
peace, Scott Hall.
Used to walk around the living room with a toothpick in my mouth and just fling it at my brother's face.
All right.
And then razor edge him onto the couch.
No one cares.
Oh,
as
everybody cares
long as it was Gregory Joseph.
It was Greg, yeah.
All right. Very good.
It explains a lot.
That was another episode of Pardon the Punctuation. RIP Scott Hall. Thank you to Chad Brendel for stopping in for his little gem. Thank you to Clay Snowden for joining us from justbaseball.com for joining us for nearly 2 hours. We missed the hell out of him, and we're glad to have him back with baseball coming back and all of that. But thank you to Ed. You were here tonight, right?
Yes, I set all this up.
Oh, okay. And to Jeff. I got confused. There were some comments I didn't know, but thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. This was a one of our louder comment sections tonight, so we appreciate all of you who joined us. But this was another episode of Pardon the Punctuation. We will be back with you next Tuesday, 9:15, as always. So for my comrades, I am Aaron Smith. We'll see you next week.
See you.